Chapter 46. You're the one who's not human. Zhang Xiu's eyes narrowed into a line. Under his gaze, the world turned black and white. His gaze swept across the temple, and the statue suddenly turned red. He smiled faintly and said, "Still not showing yourself? Are you waiting for me to drag you out?" "Huh." That thing let out a terrifying sound. "If you want me to show myself, then we'll have to see if you have the ability to do so. Don't send me to the wolf's mouth. You're asking for a beating." Zhang Xiu suddenly moved. His entire body had already soared into the air, bringing along a pitch-black fog behind him. His entire body had already rushed towards the statue and suddenly grabbed it. The other party was obviously shocked. Zhang Xiu had actually locked onto his position in an instant. But just as Zhang Xiu's hand was about to grab the statue rippled like water. Then, Zhang Xiu's hand swept across. Catoptric deflection. This little evil spirit had some ability. Ignorant and inexperienced. How is this catoptric deflection? This is countless catoptric deflection. It's called 3,000 thoughts. Brat, you can enter, but you can't leave. Zhang Xiu was shocked. Catoptric deflection was a layer of illusion. One layer was real and one layer was fake. It was a small trick. But if it was 3,000 thoughts, then it would be troublesome. There were countless similar illusory worlds inside, and if there was really only one, then it would be very troublesome to find it. If it was the previous Zhang Xiu, he wouldn't have to think too much. No matter how many spells there were, he would cut them all down with one sword. All spells would be destroyed by his incomparably sharp sword light. But now, spiritual cultivation was still a pink and tender little god cultivator. A little baby who had just awakened. He didn't have that much power at all. Ha ha ha! That evil spirit laughed wildly, as if what awaited Zhang Xiu was his devastation. But he saw Zhang Xiu's cold and indifferent eyes. "You think I can't break your spell? Ignorant, stupid." His hands moved quickly as he lightly spat out, 3,000 thoughts. Boom! Zhang Xiu had collected countless cultivation arts from the immortal martial continent. An illusory technique like 3,000 thoughts was merely a minor Dao. It was basically impossible for it to reach the level of elegance. Zhang Xiu had always been disdainful of such techniques. In the eyes of experts, illusory techniques had no way to hide. However, in a battle of lower levels, illusory techniques could still be of some use. If not, there wouldn't be any value for illusory techniques to exist. No, that's impossible. How could you? 3,000 thoughts versus 3,000 thoughts. As long as the two forces collided, a world that could truly cause a collision of power would be real. Bang! In the temple, a golden light exploded. "Come out now." The light in Zhang Xiu's eyes flashed explosively as he activated his technique. A golden light from a talisman descended from the sky, and his entire person descended rapidly from midair. With a pang, he slammed the golden talisman heavily onto the ground. Hong, an unimaginably powerful divine power erupted from the golden talisman, spreading out in all directions. Everything in the surroundings was like tofu, blown apart and destroyed by the airflow. Then, the entire ancient temple disappeared without a trace. "Quick, look, it's Mr. Zhang." The illusion was broken, and Tang Wenchong saw Zhang Xiu in the distance. The others all saw him as well. At the same time, they also saw a huge shadow floating in the darkness in the distance. It's appeared. A huge monster could be faintly seen in the sky, hibernating in the darkness. Nan Kuei said in horror, "What a terrifying aura, such powerful spiritual energy. This is a ghost king, right?" The young state teacher was also extremely shocked. Yes. The so-called ghost king surpassed the limits of ghosts, and had power close to that of immortals. Whoosh! "You've angered me!" The ghost king angrily roared. Its body seemed to be one with the pitch-black sky as it charged towards Zhang Xiu. It felt as if the sky was pressing down on him. "Mr. Zhang." Zhang Xiu didn't move at all, standing proudly with his hands behind his back. His hair and clothes fluttered in the wind. Even in the face of such a terrifying existence, he was still proud. He slightly raised his head, and his eyes were still filled with endless majesty and disdain. Hurry up and dodge. At this moment, everyone's heart was nervous to the extreme. Boom! Seeing that the Ghost King was about to pounce on Zhang Xiu, he suddenly punched the ground. The ground couldn't withstand his attack, and it exploded inch by inch. Strong light shot out from underground like a fountain, illuminating the entire construction site as if it was daytime. A complicated light array was reflected in the Ghost King's eyes. The light formation that was reflected in his eyes had been set up by Zhang Xiu before Zhang Xiu had entered his illusion. Zhang Xiu's current cultivation was still too weak. If he relied on his own strength, he might not be able to kill Zhang Xiu. He might even end up in a sorry state. Therefore, he had set up this ceiling formation in advance. This was like a hunter setting up a trap first, then using himself as bait to lure the other party in. The Ghost King shouted in horror, "Who the hell are you?" With a whoosh, the ceiling array formed a huge suction force and suddenly sucked the Ghost King in. The light of the array immediately disappeared, and the world returned to darkness. A sparkling ball of light floating in the air suddenly seemed to lose control and fell from the sky. Zhang Xiu stretched out his hand, and the bead steadily fell into his hand. The power is very pure. If all goes well, I should be able to enter the second awakened realm after absorbing it. HM? The bead trembled violently. Sir, please spare my life. Please spare my life. Zhang Xiu was a little surprised. After being sealed by him, it could still transmit its voice. First, it could transmit 3,000 thoughts, and now it could transmit its voice through the seal. This thing was not simple. Who taught you this magic? It was the true Lord who taught me. Please spare my life. Zhang Xiu asked, "Why did he teach you?" This little one has been guarding the true Lord Temple for more than 500 years, and I'm about to succeed. Please spare my life. This little one will never forget it. Zhang Xiu said, "So what if you succeed? You're still just a ghost immortal." The Ghost King was stunned. What an arrogant tone. It was as if he didn't even put a ghost immortal in his eyes. That was the height he wanted to reach in his life. Sir, of course you don't put a ghost immortal in your eyes. However, I've been cultivating for hundreds of years in order to one day become a ghost immortal. Please spare my life. Zhang Xiu muttered to himself. Suddenly, black smoke came out of the bead and shot forward. Zhang Xiu frowned and said coldly, "You want to escape?" He made a hand seal and pointed a finger at the black smoke. A streak of divine light flashed out, and an extremely shrill scream rang out. Chi chi! The black smoke seemed to have been pierced through by an invisible light. Zhang Xiu raised the bead with his left hand and pointed at it with his right. The black smoke that was about to dissipate suddenly gathered back into the bead. "You're too impatient. If you had waited a little longer, I might have let you go. Now you've lost your life." All of the sorcerers present were stunned. Killed. This is too. They were speechless. The Ghost King couldn't even be killed by his ancestors in the Foundation establishment stage and could only be sealed. You killed him with a point of your finger. How could it be so terrifying? Nan Kuei and the young state preceptor were shocked beyond words. They couldn't imagine what level Zhang Xiu's sorcery had reached. The Foundation establishment stage? It couldn't be. No one had ever heard of anyone reaching the Foundation establishment stage since the Republic of China. Those who could reach the Qi refining stage were already top sorcerers. Moreover, Zhang Xiu was so young. Qin Wei Ping squeezed out a sentence after a long time. That's it? The students and Chairman Qin's heart had completely collapsed at this moment. It didn't even take a minute and it was done. 70% of his shares were given to him just like that. Zhang Xiu walked back and said, "It's done. Tomorrow, the construction site can resume." After that, he ignored Qin Wei Ping and walked straight out. "Mr. Zhang, let me send you off." Tang Wenchong drove Zhang Xiu back to school. When he got out of the car, Tang Wenchong handed him a bank card and said, "Mr. Jiang, this is your reward." Zhang Xiu certainly didn't refuse. This was what he deserved. Although he got 70% of Wan Ji's shares, he still had to wait until he made money before he could receive dividends. This 100% just happened to solve his urgent needs. "Mr. Jiang, have a safe trip." When Zhang Xiu returned to the dormitory, it was almost 11 o'clock. The animals in the dormitory were all gone. Some of them sneaked out to surf the internet. He was just about to cultivate when his phone rang. Whoosh, it was his mother calling him more than 10 times. He hurriedly picked it up. "Hello, Mom." "Minor repairs. Why didn't you pick up the phone?" "I was just reading and didn't bring my phone." Zhang Xiu casually made up an excuse and asked, "Mom, why are you calling me so late?" "Minor repairs. Did you quarrel with Su Su?" Chapter 47. Hearing this, Zhang Xiu roughly understood what was going on. Maybe the Cheng family told his parents that he had signed the agreement to cancel the engagement. However, he still said, "No, why?" Lin Yueling said, "Your auntie's son called and insisted that you cancel the engagement with Su Su." Today, Zhang Xiu beat up the 4 young masters. If the Cheng family wanted to survive in Jiangnan, how could they dare to marry Zhang Xiu, who had offended the 4 young masters? Moreover, she didn't like Zhang Xiu to begin with. She hurriedly returned home and called Lin Yueling, saying that she wanted to cancel the engagement no matter what. However, Lin Yueling didn't tell her the reason. She just said that her son had offended the rich and powerful, so the Cheng family decided to cancel the engagement. She just said that Zhang Xiu and Cheng Lingsu weren't suitable for each other. Zhang Xiu said, "They can do whatever they want." When he had signed his name, he had already planned it out. Lin Yueling said, "How can you do that? You didn't do anything wrong to Su Su, right? As long as you do your best, it's fine. Don't worry about this matter. Focus on your studies." After saying this, Lin Yueling hung up the phone. In her previous life, although Zhang Xiu insisted on the engagement, Zhang Yi and Lin Yueling couldn't let it go either. In that era, it was a huge sum of money. Then, Zhang Yi used his position to benefit the Cheng family and even went to jail. In their hearts, they definitely felt that the Cheng family owed them. How could they be willing to cancel the engagement? Forget it. Let nature take its course. I'll cultivate first. Zhang Xiu was a cultivation maniac. He had a stubborn hobby for cultivation. Just like the animals in his dorm who loved to play games, he would feel uncomfortable if he didn't cultivate for a day. Not to mention, the newly acquired Yin soul energy could raise his cultivation significantly. He slowly opened his hand, and the bead flew into the air, exuding a faint glow. Zhang Xiu closed his eyes and began to use a secret technique to absorb the power within the bead. Awakened level 1 is still too weak. Controlling lightning almost drained me. In the end, he wasn't even able to use the lightning art and had to throw it out. The power of the ghost was indeed very pure. The ghost claimed that it was guarding the temple for the true Lord who built the true Lord temple. Now that he thought about it, the possibility was not high. If that was the case, it could be considered a ghost servant of the true Lord. Why would the true Lord seal it? After being sealed, the growth of a ghost servant would be very slow. Pop, pop, pop. The blood energy within Zhang Xiu's body surged and his entire body emitted a bright red light. His muscles bulged and his bones became as hard as steel. His bloodline appeared on the surface of his body. The distribution of his bloodline was completely different from that of humans. It looked like the pattern of some ancient divine beast. Ah! Zhang Xiu made a sound that was both painful and excited. At this time, his eyes were completely black, and blood was flowing from them. He looked indescribably ferocious. The most obvious change was that there was an additional divine pattern on his arm. Zhang Xiu didn't know what his divine body was or how many divine patterns there were in the awakening stage. According to his judgment, the more divine patterns there were, the stronger they were. When a complete divine pattern was formed, it would give birth to a special ability unique to the Protoss. He was very much looking forward to it. Many Protoss abilities were far superior to spells. Unknowingly, the sky outside was already bright. Jiang Xiu finished his training and went to the bathroom to take a shower. He let his boiling blood cool down. He looked at himself in the mirror. His appearance had changed again. His facial features were more three-dimensional. How should he put it? Before, Jiang Xiu was photoshopped. Now, Jiang Xiu was photoshopped. Even more obvious was his height. He seemed to have grown another 2 or 3 centimeters, making him look even taller. At noon, in the cafeteria, he coincidentally met Chang Lingsu, Ouyang Qian, Li Dan, and the other girls. They were very surprised to see Jiang Xiu appear in school unscathed. Ouyang Qian said, "Why didn't the 4 young masters teach him a lesson?" Just now, they were still saying that Jiang Xiu would definitely be dealt with very badly. Li Dan was very confused. Yeah, he hit the 4 young masters. There's no reason for the 4 young masters to not teach him a lesson. Cheng Lingsu didn't say anything. Yesterday, she went home with Sun Xiaohong. When Sun Xiaohong got home, the first thing she did was call Lin Yueling to cancel the engagement. However, Lin Yueling didn't agree no matter what. The two even quarreled over the phone. She didn't take out the agreement to cancel the engagement. It seemed that the matter wouldn't be resolved so easily. After all, the elders of the Zhang family didn't agree. She said casually, maybe the 4 young masters were scared by the supernatural incident yesterday. Ouyang Qian nodded and said, "That's really good for this kid. They can't forget that they were beaten up. When they come back to their senses, they'll probably still find trouble with Jiang Xiu." She seemed to be very unwilling. At this time, Yi Wenqin's group also came. Their group of animals almost dominated the most beautiful girls in the second high school. Yi Wenqin saw Jiang Xiu in the distance and also frowned. "Young Master Yi, this guy is actually fine." "That's strange." Ouyang Qian said, "How about you remind young Master Bai?" His front teeth were knocked out. How could he forget about this matter? Yi Wenqin nodded. However, in the next few days, Jiang Xiu lived a leisurely life in school. He didn't see young Master Bai come to find trouble with him. Ouyang Qian and the other girls couldn't help but ask, "Young Master Yi, why is there no movement from young Master Bai?" Yi Wenqin was also puzzled and said, "I mentioned it to young Master Bai. He just grunted and said he knew." On Sunday afternoon, Lin Yueling called Jiang Xiu and asked him to go home. He hadn't gone back in this life yet. Speaking of which, he missed them quite a bit. Jiang Xiu's family was in the suburbs of Jiang City, a place called Yunhu Town. Back then, Jiang Xiu's family had nothing. They couldn't stay in Jiang City anymore, so they settled down in Yunhu Town. Times developed very quickly. After more than 10 years, the original Yunhu Town had become Yunhu District. It no longer looked like a town, but a proper city. However, it was still a town after all. There were still many old streets inside. Jiang Xiu's family was so unlucky that they didn't get demolished. Now, the family was still on the old street. However, the old street was still quite crowded. When they got out of the car and set foot on the old street, scenes of the past floated in their minds. A feeling of missing family surged in their hearts. From afar, they saw their family's fruit stall. It was really small. It was only 4 or 5 square meters. Some fruits were placed outside. There was a woman talking to his mother. Jiang Xiu still remembered this woman. She was the owner of the fruit stall. Every time she appeared, it was a nightmare for Jiang Xiu. This was because every time this woman came, the atmosphere at home would become very depressing. His father would hide on the balcony and not speak. His mother would silently do the housework because the rent had increased again. "Yueling, I know your family is in a difficult situation. However, what rent doesn't increase now? The 800 yuan I rented for you is too little. Look at this street. Who else can afford so little?" Lin Yueling was in her 40s. Her facial features were very delicate. However, her face was already covered in wrinkles. No matter how beautiful a person was, they couldn't withstand a miserable fate. However, even if she was tortured by fate, her temperament was completely incomparable to that of a commoner. However, at this time, there was an indescribable bitterness on her face. "Sister Lin, you know that business hasn't been good recently. My son is going to take the college entrance examination again. Our family can't take it anymore. Can you just give us a year? The rent will increase next year." Sister Lin's eyes widened. "Increase next year? Are you kidding? How much is it going to cost this year?" "A difference of 200 yuan a month. That's more than 2,000 yuan a year." Lin Yueling said. "Sister Lin." Sister Lin interrupted her. "Who doesn't have difficulties? I'm a business, not a charity. If you think the rent is too expensive, then don't rent it. Go to the end of the street. It's cheaper there. It's only 500 yuan a month." The fruit stall relied on the flow of people. There was no one at the end of the street. Moreover, Zhang Xiu's family's fruit stall could still hold on. Who would dare to change? If business wasn't good, the whole family would have to eat northwest wind. Lin Yueling said, "Sister Lin, I'm begging you. This year, my son really needs to go to school." Sister Lin said, "Forget it. Your son doesn't have any future prospects. I heard that he's at the bottom of the school. You're still counting on him to get into university and change his fate? I advise you to save the money." "Mom." Suddenly, a voice sounded. Lin Yueling looked over. Who else could it be but Zhang Xiu? Chapter 48. When Lin Yueling saw her son, she squeezed out a smile, but there was some awkwardness underneath. She said, "Son, you're back. Quick, greet her." To the Zhang family, Auntie Lin was their breadwinner. Usually, when she passed by a fruit stall, the Zhang family would not only take fruits for free, but they also had to be respectful, afraid that they would anger her and cut off their family's livelihood. Zhang Xiu's eyes swept over. That arrogance had been cultivated for more than 3,000 years. How could he lower his head to a mere commoner? What a joke. Seeing her son's attitude, Lin Yueling thought that he must have heard Auntie Lin's words. She changed the topic and said, "There's a lot of pressure in school now." Auntie Lin did not buy it and was instantly displeased. "Yueling, it's not that I want to nag at you, but your son is still studying. Don't study until he becomes stupid. You should stop studying. Go to a construction site to move bricks or be a hotel attendant. Which one isn't better than what you are now? You're just losing money." These words were really harsh. Lin Yueling only had this one son, and she treated him like a treasure. Being humiliated like this made the hair on her face stand up and her face turn red. But she still smiled and said, "The child is still young and doesn't know any better." Auntie Lin said, "Still young? He'll be 18 next year. What the hell?" Her face was full of disdain as she glanced at Zhang Xiu with contempt. She had a son who was about the same age as Zhang Xiu. She said that her son was much better than Zhang Xiu and that her son could get into first high school, while Zhang Xiu could not even get into Yunhu High School. In the end, the Zhang family was awesome. Zhang Yi went to the Cheng family, and Zhang Xiu was directly admitted to the best second high school in Jiang City. Her son, on the other hand, could not even get into Yunhu High School. He even spent money to get in. Let me tell you, the rent is not negotiable. Increase it by 300. Lin Yueling said in a hoarse voice, "Didn't you say it was 200? 200 yuan was already beyond the limit of Zhang Xiu's family. Zhang Xiu's monthly living expenses were only 200 yuan. If he could have a few hundred yuan more, he would not have only given 200 yuan. Auntie Lin said, "It's too much, so I'm raising it by 400. How about it? Do you want to rent it or not? I have no obligation to raise your son." Lin Yueling said, "Son, you go home first." An increase of 400 yuan was unacceptable. In the past, the monthly rent was only 800 yuan. Now that it was increased by 400 yuan, it would be 1,200 yuan a month. The whole family would have to go hungry. She had to beg Auntie Lin to not increase it by so much. Zhang Xiu still remembered that in his previous life, his mother had been forced to kneel and beg this woman. The dignified Miss Lin of the Lin family, the daughter of a rich family, had knelt down to this shrew for the sake of Zhang Xiu and his father. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiu felt as if his heart was being stabbed by a knife. Zhang Xiu said, "Mom, this won't do. We'll move." Lin Yueling's eyes widened. She was so scared that she broke out in a cold sweat. What was this silly son saying? Their whole family depended on this fruit stall. If they moved, what would happen if there was no business? Would they starve to death on the streets? Moreover, Zhang Xiu was still in high school and would be going to university next year. Lin Yueling could suffer, but she could not risk her son's future. Auntie Lin said, "Good, that's great. Then you guys can move. I can't wait." Lin Yueling panicked. She was so nervous that cold sweat broke out on her forehead. "Brat, what nonsense are you saying? Auntie Lin has taken care of our family all these years. Hurry up and go home." "Take care." It was more like bullying. Auntie Lin knew that Zhang Xiu's family was poor. She knew that Zhang Xiu's family would not dare to move out. The rent for a fruit stall that was less than 4 square meters had risen from $100 to $800. Now, it was going to rise to $12,000. Places that were bigger and better than this place did not have such high rents. Zhang Xiu said, "Mom, I have money. I'll buy you an apartment." Lin Yueling was so anxious that she wanted to vomit blood. What was with the act? Did he think that he could scare Auntie Lin away? That was impossible. Auntie Lin had wanted to force them out for a long time. If they really moved out, it would be as she wished. "What nonsense are you saying? Hurry up and go in." Mother's tone was very strict. She even reached out to push Zhang Xiu. "Mom, I'm really rich." Not only was he rich, but he was very rich. He had $1 million in his pocket and a company that was worth $2 billion. He owned 70% of the shares. Spiritual cultivation was a billionaire. "Don't say any more," Auntie Lin said. "Good, very good. You still dare to play this game with me. If your family had money, pigs could fly. A poor kid like you dares to play with me. Look at you, I can tell that you're going to be poor your whole life. Aren't you rich? Move out." Clap, clap, clap. Auntie Lin even clapped her hands and said, "Everyone, Yueling's son is doing well. Come and see. He said that he's going to buy a shop for his family." The neighbors saw that there was a commotion and came over. They did not mind watching the show. "Really? Isn't Minor Repairs still in school? Where would he have the money to buy a shop? He's just bragging." That's right. Auntie Lin was like a hen ready to fight. The more people there were, the more she got into it. "Everyone, I'm not forcing Yueling's family. Her son has already said that he doesn't want to rent anymore. He wants to buy one for his mother. Don't say that he's not loyal. He doesn't know how to study, but he's already bragging. If anyone takes a fancy to my shop, I'll immediately sublet it. For the first 3 months, the electricity and water will be on me." Someone at the side immediately got excited. The electricity and water cost 100 to 200 yuan a month. She even got a shop that was causing trouble. Although Zhang Xiu's fruit stall did not make much money, it still supported his family. Many people were jealous. "Auntie Lin, you're a woman of your word." "I'm a woman of my word." Lin Yueling panicked and said hurriedly, "Auntie Lin, my son is still young and doesn't know any better. Don't lower yourself to his level. Didn't you say that the rent will be increased?" "Increase. We'll increase it." Auntie Lin said, "What are you talking about?" "What are you talking about? Do I still dare to rent to your family? Listen to your tone. I'm almost scared to death. You're going to buy an entire house. That's really scary. I can't afford to serve a rich family like yours. What if he wants to kill me with money?" Lin Yueling said, "Auntie Lin, calm down, calm down." Auntie Lin said, "I wouldn't dare. Your son is so powerful. What if he wants to kill me with money? Saliva Young, do you want my shop? The middle-aged man who had just spoken was overjoyed. Yes, why wouldn't I? Auntie Lin, let's talk in my house. This Saliva Young was the owner of a noodle shop. Auntie Lin twisted her fat body and walked over. Lin Yueling was really panicking now. She hurriedly chased after her and said, Auntie Lin, the Zhang family is in trouble now. The people on the side of the road were gloating. Yueling's son is too stupid. He actually argued with a landlady. Isn't he courting death? If you don't have money, don't pretend to be rich. Auntie Lin followed Saliva Young into the shop. When she saw Lin Yueling chasing after her, she said with disdain, Don't waste your breath. I can't afford to serve a tenant like you. Lin Yueling begged, Auntie Lin, we've been guests for more than 10 years. We've always gotten along well. Minor repairs is too young. I'm just worried about my family's situation. Please don't lower yourself to his level. I apologize to you here. Don't refuse to rent the shop to me. Her face that had been wasted by time was filled with endless desolation. The helplessness in her eyes was far from what the common people could imagine. Auntie Lin, please rent the shop to us again. Her eyes glistened with tears. No one knew the hardships she had suffered all these years. After Zhang Yi was released from prison, his entire person changed. He was unable to recover from the setback and lived like mud. Zhang Xiu was still young. The entire family depended on her alone. However, she stubbornly refused to cry. Only the begging in her eyes grew stronger. I beg you. Auntie Lin sneered. Beg me? Sure. Get your awesome son to kneel down and apologize to me. Otherwise, don't even think about renting my shop. Ah. Lin Yueling's eyes suddenly shrank. Zhang Xiu was her everything. How could she bear to let him suffer like this? Auntie Lin, the child is young, but his pride is strong. How about I apologize to you on his behalf? When she said this, her voice trembled. It was as if her entire soul had been hollowed out. Lin Yueling, oh Lin Yueling. She felt as if she didn't recognize herself anymore. Once upon a time, the proud princess of the Lin Yueling had to kneel down to a common shrew for 5 buckets of rice. Then kneel down. Lin Yueling's face immediately paled. She lowered her head, not daring to let others see her face. Her knees slowly bent. Chapter 49. Seeing that Lin Yueling was about to kneel in front of her, Sister Lin thought fiercely in her heart. Even if you kneel, I won't necessarily rent the store to you. That mean face of hers was filled with pride and excitement. But just as Lin Yueling was about to kneel, a hand suddenly reached out and grabbed onto Lin Yueling's arm. That hand was very strong, like an iron clamp, causing her to be unable to kneel any further. Lin Yueling looked back in astonishment, only to see a face as stiff as steel. His eyes were ice cold and his pupils were empty. His entire person gave off an incomparably cold feeling, but the hand that was holding onto her was trembling, showing that his heart was fluctuating violently. This sovereign said before that I will make you the most honorable woman in this world. No one can make you kneel. No one. His voice seemed to come from the horizon, every word was powerful, and when it landed on the ground, it caused people's hearts to tremble. Son. Lin Yueling had never seen such a proud son. Her heart was stirred up, and she was extremely shocked. Zhang Xiu turned his head and stared into his mother's eyes with a pair of deep, mysterious eyes. Not to mention kneeling in front of a vulgar and despicable vixen. Lin Yueling's entire body trembled. Once upon a time, she was so proud and aloof. Sister Lin stood up and scolded, Little bastard, who are you calling a shrew? You bastard son, this old mother was really blind to rent the store to a bunch of ungrateful wretches like you. Zhang Xiu said, You think that renting the store to my family is a gift to us? What a joke, my family didn't pay you the rent, or my family didn't pay you enough. Also, don't think that just because my family relies on the fruit stall for a living, and because I have to study and can't take the risk, I'll let you exploit me, right? Sister Alin said, That's right, this old mother is exploiting you, so what? You're just a pauper born in poverty. Her face was full of disdain as she spat. I know very well how much your family's fruits earn. There's no way you can save a single cent more. You're still trying to pick a fight with me. Pack up your things and get out of here. Zhang Xiu said, If that's the case, then there's nothing more to say. Auntie Lin said, You've lost your temper and admitted defeat? Are you done being fierce and want to apologize to me? Apologize? Zhang Xiu said, You're wrong. He calmly took out his cell phone, and the call was quickly connected. Seeing that Zhang Xiu was calling, Tang Jinshan was a little excited. Mr. Zhang, what's the matter? Zhang Xiu said indifferently, By the entire street of Cloud Lake South Road for me. Tang Jinshan said straightforwardly, Okay. Sister Alin was laughing so hard that she couldn't straighten her back. Saliva Yong was also very happy, and the surrounding neighbors were all laughing. This joke was too big. First, he bragged that he wanted to buy a shop for his mother. Great, now it was upgraded and he wanted to buy the entire street. With this bragging, why didn't he go to heaven? Zhang Xiu glanced at Sister Alin. You don't have to buy my family's fruit stall. Tang Jinshan said, Okay. Zhang Xiu seemed to have said something insignificant and hung up the phone. Sister Alin spat on the side. How shameless. You're just a poor pauper who owns a fruit stall. You can't even afford the rent of 400 yuan a month, but you still want to pretend to be a tycoon. Go ahead and pretend to be a tycoon. You deserve to be poor your whole life. Idiot. Zhang Xiu's eyes flashed coldly, and a terrifying murderous aura surged out of him. Sister Alin's heart couldn't help but jump. She realized that she had been frightened by Zhang Xiu's gaze. She said angrily, What? Don't tell me you want to hit me? You can try to touch me. Hit. Sister Alin's expression changed. Zhang Xiu had already ruthlessly slapped her. Spiritual cultivation wanted to kill Wuji. The word woman was not an umbrella for her to throw a tantrum. The word old was also not an excuse to hit a child who didn't give up her seat. Pa! The slap landed on Sister Alin's face. Her fat and short body was sent flying through the air, crashing directly into the noodle shop's dining table. There was a loud crash, and the Lao Gon Ma soy sauce and vinegar on the table fell to the ground. The entire table was crushed by her. Ah! The onlooking neighbors all screamed. Before Lin Yueling could react, Zhang Xiu strode over, grabbed her hair, and slapped her face again and again. This slap is to remind you that my parents worked so hard to set up a fruit stall to earn money. Why can't you calculate any more money? Who do you think you are to control my family's fate? This slap is to teach you a lesson. Don't forget your roots. If it wasn't for my mother renovating the store, your family wouldn't have been able to live so well without the rent. This slap is for my mother. No one can humiliate her. No one. This slap. Zhang Xiu slapped her with every sentence. After more than 10 slaps, Sister Alin's face was swollen. There was blood at the corner of her mouth, and she couldn't stop trembling. Saliva Yong call Brother Hao. Only then did Saliva Yong react. I'll call him right away. Kid, you're dead. Some neighbors asked, Who is Brother Hao? The young master of the Dongxing group. I didn't expect Sister Alin to know such a big shot. The neighbor asked, Really? That's the Dongxing group. They have bars, KTVs, and parking lots in the Yunhu area. Without his permission, they can't even open a business. How can Sister Alin know such a big shot? You don't know, right? Sister Alin worked for his family when she was young. She took care of Brother Hao for a few days. Hiss. The neighbors immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. Zhang Xiu was done. This time, he had really gotten himself into big trouble. After the call went through, Sister Alin cried, Little Hausie, your Sister Alin was hit by someone? She slapped me more than 10 times. My face is disfigured. Yes, it's at Yunhu South Road. My store is here. Okay, I'll wait for you. The neighbors looked at Zhang Xiu with a changed expression. Little bastard, just you wait. When Wang Hao received the call, he was just across the road from Yunhu. The car soon arrived and 3 men got out. Sister Arlin saw the man in the front and ran over. Although she was short and fat, she ran very fast. Is it really Wang Hao from the Dongxing group? The eye-catching brand-new Mercedes-Benz was so eye-catching in the dilapidated street. The 4/8 on the license plate showed the owner's extraordinary wealth and power. He's Wang Hao. Wang Hao from the Dongxing group. I heard that he's Master Lei's subordinate and the boss of Yunhu. Lin Yueling's face was pale. She didn't blame the minor repairs. She didn't think that her son did anything wrong. It would be sad if a son didn't do anything when he saw his mother being humiliated. However, she and her mother couldn't bear the consequences. Where's that man? Wang Hao was less than 30 years old. He had a square face and small eyes. He looked very fierce, but he was wearing a suit. He looked like a fierce and powerful person. This kind of person was the kind of person that ordinary people did not dare to provoke. That's him, you little bastard. Sister Arlin's fingers reached over. She wanted to slap Zhang Xiu's face. You're Zhang Xiu? You're the one who hit my sister Lin? Logically speaking, this is your private matter. You're just a poor student. I shouldn't bully you. However, Sister Lin took care of me when I was young. She's half my godmother. You hit my godmother. What do you think we should do? Lin Yueling stood up for her son out of habit. However, she was pulled back by Zhang Xiu. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked at Wang Hao with a faint smile. What should we do? It's simple. She wants my mother to kneel down in front of her. Make her kneel down in front of my mother. What? What did you say? Wang Hao seemed to have heard wrongly. He looked at Zhang Xiu with amusement. The faces of the surrounding neighbors turned pale. They looked at Zhang Xiu as if they were looking at an idiot. Did he know who the person in front of him was? He's crazy. How dare you talk to Brother Hao like that? Lin Yueling almost fainted when she heard this. She wanted to say something but was stopped by Wang Hao. He looked at Zhang Xiu with interest and said, Let him continue. Tell me what else he wants to say. I, Wang Hao, am the most reasonable. Zhang Xiu said, If you want to stand up for her, then you'd better be prepared. Hurry up and get out of here before I have the urge to kill you. Wow. The neighbors were in an uproar. Yueling's son was really crazy. He dared to talk to Wang Hao like that. Wang Hao couldn't hold back his anger anymore. Brat, ever since I followed Master Lei, no one has dared to talk to me like that in the Cloud Lake area. I think you're courting death. Chapter 50. Mrs. Lin saw that Wang Hao was enraged, and her eyes were filled with hatred and anger. Yes, little rat, this kid is too arrogant. He doesn't even put you in his eyes. Find someone to hack him to death. Her tone was filled with hatred, and her expression was even more vicious than a gangster's. Those who didn't know better would think that Mrs. Lin was just a gangster. When Lin Yueling heard her son's words, she almost fainted. Originally, this matter could be solved, but now, even if Mrs. Lin was willing to let it go, Wang Hao would never let it go. As a leader, he had to maintain his dignity. As the saying goes, kill the chicken to scare the monkey. Wang Hao would definitely do something to her son. Her heart was filled with sadness. Why are you so stubborn? Why won't you bow down? If something happens to you, how can I live? For her now, Zhang Xiu was everything. Seeing Wang Hao's anger, the surrounding neighbors didn't dare to make a sound. Today's matter was serious, and something bad might happen. They all began to worry for Zhang Xiu. Even if he didn't die, he would definitely lose an arm or a leg, and become a disabled person. They couldn't imagine how miserable his life would be in the future. But Zhang Xiu was still as calm as ever, as if nothing had happened to him. Little At this time, a middle-aged man came in, holding a briefcase. He was surprised to see so many people in the shop. He said to Shui Yong, "Yong, I can't rent this shop to you anymore." Shui Yong was shocked. "Why, Chen Hai, I didn't give you a penny less rent. You can't not rent the shop to me. My business just got better. You want to raise the rent because my business is good." Just now, Sister Lin had completely exposed the landlady's mentality and mouth. Chen Hai smiled and shook his head. "Do I look like that kind of person? It's not that I want to raise the rent, but I've already sold the shop. I came here to tell you about it. As for whether you can continue to rent it in the future, that depends on the new owner. That's it, I'm leaving." Sold it. If that was the case, then there was really no other way. He hurriedly called out to Chen Huan and asked, "Who did you sell it to?" Mr. Chen said, "I sold it to Mr. Jiang." Mr. Jiang? Everyone looked at Shui Yong sympathetically. Ever since his family's noodle shop opened here, business had been booming. The customers actually had no place to sit. That was why he wanted to take over Jiang Xiu's shop. He didn't expect that his own backyard would catch fire. Just as she finished speaking, a voice came from outside. "Ah Feng, it's great that you're here." "Hey, Mr. Wang, why are you here?" "What's the matter?" "Ah Feng, I'm sorry, but I can't rent my shop to you anymore." "Why?" "I sold it to Mr. Jiang." Everyone looked at each other. Why was it sold to Mr. Jiang again? Wang Hao said, "Who is this Mr. Jiang? Why did he buy so many shops?" "You don't care about money." However, all of this was just the beginning. Similar news came in an endless stream. "Shui, I can't rent my shop to you anymore. I sold it to Mr. Jiang." "I'm sorry, Brother Ding. My shop has also been sold to Mr. Jiang." For a moment, the entire Yunhu street was flooded with Mr. Jiang's name. "I sold it to Mr. Jiang." "Mr. Jiang," someone could not help but say, "Oh my God, who is this Mr. Jiang? If he continues to buy like this, is he going to buy the entire Yunhu South Street?" The news was still coming. "Ah Bing, my shop has also been sold to Mr. Jiang." Since just now, news came one after another that Mr. Jiang had already bought more than 20 shops. Like a hurricane, he crazily bought the shops on Yunhu South Street. Everyone, you're right. I just heard from the street committee that our entire street has been bought by Mr. Jiang." Whoa! This time, the entire noodle shop and the neighbors who gathered along the way were all in an uproar. What a big deal! This is too shocking. There were thousands of shops on Yunhu Street. If one shop was sold for 200,000 yuan, that would be 200 million yuan. What did 200 million yuan mean? In 2008, the economy had not taken off yet. Let alone 100 million yuan, even a millionaire would cause an uproar. Yunhu South Street has changed. That's right. From now on, this Mr. Jiang will be our owner. Everyone's fate is in his hands. I hope this Mr. Jiang is a good person and can empathize with poor people like us." At that moment, someone said, "That's not right. I thought Mrs. Lin's shop was not sold? It doesn't count as buying the entire street. Just a moment ago, Lin Yueling's silly son had said that he wanted to buy the entire Yunhu South Street." Well, there was actually someone who wanted to buy the entire street. Moreover, it just so happened that Mrs. Lin's shop was not sold. Mrs. Lin was also stunned, but she immediately rejected this possibility. It was impossible. It must be a coincidence. What kind of joke was this? That kid was a pauper who only knew how to run a fruit stall. How could he have the money to buy the entire street? Mrs. Lin said, "Howsy, didn't you want to teach that kid a lesson for Mrs. Lin? You can't just let it go. Didn't he just tell you to get lost?" Wang Hao frowned. He would not forget that the person who could tell Wang how to get lost had not said anything yet. At that moment, the noodle shop was rudely pushed open amidst the commotion. A burly man in a black suit and sunglasses walked in. He was a very rough, middle-aged man. Mrs. Lin said, "Who are you?" Slap. Wang Hao immediately slapped Mrs. Lin's already swollen face. Mrs. Lin was stunned. She did not know what to do. She said timidly, "Haozi, what's wrong?" "Shut up." Wang Hao put on a smile and quickly went forward. He said with a flattering face, Master Lei, why are you here? Your presence brings light to my humble dwelling." When the neighbors of Cloud Lake saw Wang Hao's face, they were all shocked. Who was this person that even Wang Hao had to be so respectful towards? Master Lei? Could it be De Lei? If it was him, then it made sense. No wonder young Master Hao was like that. Young Master Hao was with him. If half of Yunhu's underground belonged to young Master Hao, then half of Zhongqing's underground belonged to De Lei. Why did such a big Buddha come to such a small place like Yunhu? However, Big Thunder only had Zhong Xiu in his line of sight. He pushed Wang Hao away and came in front of Zhong Xiu. He knelt on both knees. Not only did he kneel on the ground, but he also started slapping himself without saying a word. Lin Yueling was stunned. Zhong Xiu was calm. De Lei was hospitalized after that day. He was discharged 2 days ago. However, once he was discharged, he knew about Zhong Xiu's identity. If he wanted to continue relying on the Tang family, he had to get Zhong Xiu's forgiveness. He followed Brother Dong's actions. After that, Zhong Xiu accepted the Tang family. He felt that this method was useful. Slap, slap, slap. His body was upright and he was very respectful. He slapped himself very hard. His cheeks were swollen and the corners of his mouth were protruding. He did not even frown when it affected his previous wound. Silence. Dead silence. No, to be precise, there was only the sound of slapping. Everyone was dumbfounded. They looked at everything that happened with incredulous eyes. Wang Hao was so shocked that his eyes almost fell out. That day, when Dong knelt in front of Zhong Xiu and slapped himself, Wang Hao was as shocked as Daily Eye was. What the hell was this? Master Lei, you... Wang Hao's face was ashen. No matter how stupid he was, he could tell that De Lei was kneeling in front of Zhong Xiu. Zhong Xiu did not speak. He pulled Lin Yueling and turned to leave. Slap, however, De Lei did not dare to stop slapping. There was a clamor at the end of the street. Both sides of Yunhu South Road were full of silent men in black suits and sunglasses. They were like sculptures. They were exactly the same as the black bodyguards on TV. There were at least 200 or 300 people. The street was full of murderous intent. When they saw Zhong Xiu come out, everyone bowed and shouted in unison, "Mr. Zhang." What? He's Mr. Zhang. It exploded. It exploded. It was a complete explosion. The entire Nanhu street was dead silent. One could hear a pin drop. These neighbors who watched Zhong Xiu grow up looked at Zhong Xiu in disbelief. Lin Yueling was even more stunned. Chapter 51. When Lin Yueling walked out of the noodle house, she was already very surprised. Although she didn't know who that man was, he must be a great person to be able to make Wang Hao tremble in fear. But he knelt down in front of her son. She was about to question Zhong Xiu and ask him to explain what was going on. But suddenly, the sound of Mr. Zhang was like a sudden clap of thunder that blew up the entire street. The streets of Cloud Lake that stretched for several miles were filled with bodyguards dressed in black and wearing sunglasses. They were shouting in unison. Their momentum was so great that it could be said that they were like tigers swallowing 10,000 miles. It was truly shocking. He is Mr. Zhang? Yueling's son is Mr. Zhang. Mrs. Lin, who was still in the noodle house, was shocked. How can it be? How can it be? There's no reason. Lin Yueling's son is a fruit stall owner. How can it be Mr. Zhang? Even though the entire street was in an uproar, Zhong Xiu was still as calm as ever, with no ripples in his heart. What did such a scene count for? Back in the immortal martial continent, he had even experienced a scene where 1,000,000 immortals and deities knelt down to welcome him. Tang Jinshan's act of creating a scene could only be considered child's play. He looked indifferently at Tang Jinshan walking towards him from afar. Tang, Tang, Tang. Wang Hao felt his legs trembling. When he saw Master Lei kneel down in front of Zhang Xiu, his heart was already in turmoil. What kind of person could make Master Lei kneel down and slap him? He didn't dare to think further and couldn't think further. When he saw Tang Jinshan appear, his heart completely collapsed. What kind of big shot did I offend? Tang Jinshan came to Zhang Xiu and said with a smile, I hope I didn't delay Mr. Zhang's business. To be able to buy the entire street of Yunhu South Road in just over half an hour, there shouldn't be many people in Jiang City who could compare with this kind of wealth and power. Zhang Xiu said, not slow. Hearing Zhang Xiu's words, the crowd went into an uproar. This was equivalent to admitting Mr. Zhang's identity. It's true. Oh my God, Lin Yueling's son is really Mr. Zhang. He wasn't bragging. He really bought the whole street. Lin Yueling was the most shocked. How could she not know her son? She was just an honest student. Every day after class, she would prepare for the college entrance examination without eating or sleeping. How did he become Mr. Zhang? However, the facts in front of her eyes couldn't lie. Although Lin Yueling didn't know who this person in front of her was, she could tell at first glance that he was a wealthy person. Coincidentally, a few years after the Zhang family's downfall, Tang Jinshan retired from the military and returned to Jiang City because of his old age. Coincidentally, he missed the Zhang family. Otherwise, they might have interacted with each other in the officialdom. His subordinates worked very quickly. They set up tables and chairs in the middle of the street, covered the table with a white tablecloth, and made it look like a French restaurant. They even opened a bottle of 1971 Bordeaux red wine. There was also a lawyer accompanying him. He handed over a document. Mr. Zhang, this is the purchase contract. Please sign it. I'll go back to the lawyer's office and sort it out. This was a contract that was signed on behalf of Zhang Xiu. His lawyer, Lu Cheng, had full authority to handle it. There were close to 1,000 sales contracts. Would a big shot like Zhang Xiu have the time to sign them one by one? Of course not. Everything was entrusted to the lawyer. He took a pen and signed his name on the contract. Zhang Xiu. The lawyer nodded and bowed as he put away the document. Then, he arrogantly scanned the tenants on the street and said, from now on, the entire street of Yunhu South Road, from Yunhu South Road 1 to Yunhu South Road 1027, belongs to Mr. Zhang. Although they already knew, they couldn't help but burst into an uproar when they heard it. Zhang Xiu, Lin Yueling's son. Not only was he a big shot, but he would also control their livelihood in the future. Wang Hao and Anta Mu were dragged over by the burly man and pushed into the middle of the street. Mr. Zhang, I was blind. Spare me, spare me. Anta Mu kowtowed and begged for mercy. At this moment, she completely understood. Everything in front of her told her that the fruit stall owner had made a comeback. Mr. Zhang, I watched you grow up. Spare me, please. Zhang Xiu's gaze was cold, but he didn't care. If this kind of person was in the immortal martial continent, he would have killed her with a flick of his sleeve. It would have simply dirted his hands. However, such a person rode on his family's coattails in his previous life and even humiliated his mother. Yueling, our host for more than 10 years. Seeing Zhang Xiu's cold expression, she knew that she was done for. She knelt and crawled towards Lin Yueling. Now, she knew that she was the host for more than 10 years. Spare me, please. Lin Yueling was still in a daze. At this moment, she felt as if she had returned to the past, to the time when she was still the young miss of the Lin family. She felt as if everything had returned. She looked towards Zhang Xiu. The sun in front of her made her feel both familiar and unfamiliar. Sun. Zhang Xiu's gaze swept over her. Scram. Don't let me see you again. In the future, you are not allowed to take half a step into Yunhu South Road. Anta Mu's eyes widened. The entire street had been sold to Zhang Xiu. Only her shop was not sold. If she wasn't allowed to enter, How was she supposed to collect rent? How could her thoughts escape Zhang Xiu's eyes? Zhang Xiu turned to Wang Hao and said, "You scram too. If she dares to take half a step into Yunhu South Road, break her legs." Wang Hao felt as if he had been pardoned. "Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. I definitely won't let her take half a step into Yunhu South Road." Aunt Amu was dumbstruck. What a vicious method. It was simply invulnerable. She found a backer to stand up for her, but in the end, it turned out to be her nemesis. This was simply like shooting herself in the foot. She finally understood why Zhang Xiu didn't want to buy her shop. It was because he wanted to forcibly occupy it. Well, it couldn't be said that he was forcibly occupying it. Her small shop was originally just an aisle that was used to store trash. Later on, after it was tidied up, an outer wall was built, and it was renovated. It didn't even have property rights. However, the situation in the past was like this. Many people didn't have property rights. Zhang Xiu also spent money to buy her shop. It was just that he didn't give her money and didn't let her collect rent. In other words, Zhang Xiu had taken it for himself. When she thought of this, she still wanted to make a scene. However, Wang Hao's eyes were cold as he looked at her. Only then did she realize that Lin Yueling's son had become successful. Even Wang Hao couldn't afford to offend him, let alone her. Her heart was filled with fear and regret. There was no need for Tang Jinshan's people to make a move. She was thrown out of the street by Wang Hao's people. She couldn't enter this place anymore. In a small pavilion by the Cloud Lake, Zhang Yi was playing chess with someone. He was only in his 40s, but his hair had already grown white. He was very thin, and his eyes were dim. Even if he was daydreaming, the person playing chess with him was still at a loss. There were also many onlookers, and they were all trying to come up with a plan to fight against Zhang Yi. From time to time, he could hear police cars speeding by. 1, 2, 3. What's wrong? What happened? Haven't you heard? There's a big shot in our Cloud Lake South Road. The people at the side came over curiously. Zhang Yi also raised his head. Is it true? That person actually didn't know the situation. The entire street was blocked, and the periphery was filled with people. They were all spreading false rumors and hearsay. I heard that he's returning home in glory. He's very impressive. No one played chess. They wanted to squeeze into the street, but they were all blocked outside by the police. Among the police, there were also bodyguards dressed in black. They looked like statues. At a glance, they were all people in black. There was no end to them. Zhang Yi said, "He's really a big shot. Did you hear? He directly bought our entire Cloud Lake South Road." Whoa, there were cries of surprise. That was really a big deal. Zhang Yi was also extremely shocked when he heard that. In 2008, the economy had yet to take off, and the term nouveau riche had yet to appear. Such extravagant spending was simply unheard of. Buying an entire street was incomparably shocking just hearing about it. Oh no! Zhang Yi came back to his senses and realized that things were not good. The entire street had been bought. Wouldn't that mean that his fruit stall had also changed owners? He wanted to go home to take a look, so he squeezed with all his might. "Mr. Police, let me in. My family lives inside." The police said coldly, "No one is allowed to enter, not even your family. If you offend a big shot, can you at least bear the consequences? Be good and stay outside." Zhang Yi could only helplessly give up. Suddenly, there was another commotion. "The mayor is here." Someone with sharp eyes saw that the fat Chen Chu had arrived. He didn't walk in. Instead, he excitedly ran towards Zhang Yi's direction. Then, he excitedly held Zhang Yi's hand. "Old neighbor, you gave birth to a good son. The people of Cloud Lake thank you." Zhang Yi was stunned. Chapter 52. Zhang Yi was really confused. He didn't understand the situation at all. Suddenly, a leader ran over, shook his hand excitedly, and thanked him. Anyone would be confused, but he was still very excited. How could he not be excited to be praised by a leader? Even the people around him were in an uproar. Although they were also confused, it didn't stop them from looking at him with envy. Zhang Yi said, "My son? Chen Chu didn't make a mistake, right? My son is still studying in school." Chen Chu laughed and said, "Aya, how can an old neighbor make a mistake? Is your surname Zhang? As long as your surname is Zhang, it's right. Is your family running a fruit stall? As long as it's a fruit stall. Congratulations, your son bought the entire street." Zhang Yi was even more confused. What kind of joke was this? His family was so poor that he didn't even have $100. His son bought the entire street? Chen Chu even pulled his hand and walked inside. "Come, come, come. I'll accompany you home." Zhang Yi was being led around like a puppet on strings. "We're his neighbors." As he spoke, a few people who were playing chess with Zhang Yi also passed through the police cordon. This time, the police uncle didn't dare to stop them. This matter was really awkward. He actually rejected the father of a big shot and even said that he would offend the big shot. How could a father offend his son? Along the way, there were bodyguards in black. When they saw Zhang Yi being brought over by Chen Chu, they realized that this was Mr. Zhang's father. They had to respect him. Unconsciously, they puffed out their chests. Along the way, he saw more than a dozen civil servants of Yunhu district lined up. On the other side, he also saw Wang Hao from the Wanqing group, who dominated the underworld. He was as obedient as a quail. Then, he saw a few people who looked like big shots surrounding his son. Zhang Xiu stood proudly with his hands behind his back, looking down at them with disdain. He actually faintly respected him. The officials and businessmen of Yunhu district, the black and white, were all obedient. Father Zhang was shocked, stunned, dazed, and in a daze. "Mr. Zhang, your father is here." Zhang Xiu turned around and saw a middle-aged man whom he had not seen for more than 3,000 years. Although he was old, thin, and dispirited, he was still walking with his feet. In Zhang Xiu's memory, he didn't remember much about his childhood. When he was 5 years old, his father was in prison. After he was released, his father was a man of few words. It could be said that there was very little communication between father and son. However, his father was disabled for life because he went to look for the Cheng family. This was something that he could never forget. The pain he felt when he saw his father being paralyzed seemed to have happened just yesterday. That kind of pain was heart-wrenching. "Dad." The word father was as difficult as if it weighed 1,000 kilograms, but after he said it, his emotions surged out uncontrollably. His throat was sore and unbearable, and his eyes were moist as tears welled up in them. Perhaps this was the love between father and son. Minor repairs. Zhang Yi was so frightened by the scene in front of him that he didn't dare to move forward. Logically speaking, he should not be like this since he was born into a wealthy family and was an official in his early years. However, after a person was sent to prison and suffered inhumane torture, this person would be completely destroyed. His hair was messy, his beard was unkempt, his clothes were tattered, and he was still wearing plastic flip-flops. He was timid, or rather, he was so inferior that he didn't dare to move forward. "Call him." Everyone on the street shouted in unison, "Old Master Zhang." Hundreds and thousands of people on the street shouted in unison. What kind of prestige was that? The sound waves soared into the sky and made people's blood boil. They were so excited that they couldn't control themselves. Awe-inspiring. This was too awe-inspiring. Father Zhang took a step forward and walked forward. No matter how down and out he was, he still had his son. Calling him Old Master Zhang was enough to show that no one dared to look down on him. However, he still asked in disbelief, "Minor repairs? What's going on?" Zhang Xiu didn't know how to explain. If he said that he had transmigrated, they would definitely think that he was crazy. "I'll tell you later when we get home." The neighbors who followed Zhang Yi to watch the commotion were also stunned. Really, Really old Master Zhong's son? He bought the entire street? And so many big shots came. That's incredible. Zhang Xiu didn't need to stand on the table and hold a loudspeaker. He coldly glanced at the neighbors who were blocked outside by the bodyguards but didn't leave. He said, "Dear neighbors, I know what you're worried about. Don't worry. Your shops are all open for rent. The rent will remain the same." Wow. As soon as he said that, the entire Yunhu street was in an uproar. "Thank you, Mr. Zhang. That's great." They were afraid that Zhang Xiu would ask them to move out or take the opportunity to increase the rent. Zhang Xiu said, "In the future, this street will be under my parents' care. If you have any problems, look for them." Okay. The neighbors all cheered. Zhang Yi and Lin Yueling were still in a daze. It was too unreal. After going through so many difficult days, they suddenly became rich overnight. It was like a dream, but they were also very excited. Then, everyone can disperse. Go do what you need to do. The bodyguards began to leave. The neighbors could return to their shops as normal. Tang Zhenshan said, "Mr. Zhang, since the matter here has been resolved, I'll go back first. I won't disturb your family. Old Master Zhang, Mrs. Zhang, I'll take my leave." Tang Zhenshan was much older than them. Zhang Yi and his wife couldn't help but feel a little strange when they saw him being so polite. "Little Xiu, can you tell me what's going on now?" When they returned home, the couple couldn't wait to find out what had happened. Zhang Xiu had already found an excuse. He said, "A while ago, I went up the mountain to relax. I happened to see a car accident that almost fell off the cliff, so I lent a hand. The person in the car was old Master Tang Zhenshan. In order to repay me, he promised to do something for me." The couple was overjoyed. So that was the case. Lin Yueling immediately said, "If old master wants to repay your kindness, he can just support you. Why do you need all this glory? Sometimes, having money isn't a good thing. It can destroy a person. You should ask old master for a future, not a ready-made one." After all, Lin Yueling was born into a wealthy family. Her outlook was different from that of ordinary women. Once a person had money, would they still work hard? The possibility was very small. Then, their achievements would naturally be small. Zhang Xiu smiled and said, "He shouldn't be so generous. He should rent it for a few years. After the demolition, he might have to start a project. At that time, the street shouldn't belong to us anymore." Renting it for a few years was also very generous. The rent for a shop was 1,000 yuan a month. There were more than 1,000 shops, so it would be more than 1,000,000 yuan a month. It would be more than 10 million yuan a year. After a few years, it would be tens of millions. Okay. Lin Yueling felt that it was still too harsh. But no matter what, this was a great thing for their family. Everyone wanted to live a good life, especially Lin Yueling and Zhang Yi, who used to be rich. "Mom, go buy some meat. Tonight, let's celebrate." Seeing the smile on his mother's face, Zhang Xiu was sincerely happy. In his memory, his mother didn't smile much. Then, she took her wallet and went out to the market. When she went out on the street again, the people in the market might not dare to take her money and play. She was the owner of the whole street. Zhang Yi, who was beside him, didn't say much. Although Zhang Xiu's words were reasonable, in his opinion, there were many doubts. If it was just to repay a debt of gratitude, there was no need to make such a big scene. In addition, Tang Zhenshan had always been respectful to Zhang Xiu, and even to the two of them. If it was to repay a debt of gratitude, being polite was enough. It didn't make sense. However, it seemed that other than Zhang Xiu's explanation, he really couldn't think of any other reason. Zhang Xiu said, "Dad, which area do you think is good? Let's move to a new house." Zhang Yi shook his head and said, "You and your mother decide." In Zhang Xiu's father's eyes, there was always loneliness. In the past, Zhang Xiu didn't understand his father very well, but now he understood that his father was a very proud person. He didn't yearn for wealth and glory, nor did he covet it. Otherwise, he wouldn't insist on his love. His pain was because his ambition couldn't be realized. For a person like him, even if there were mountains of gold and silver in front of him, he wouldn't care. In his heart, there was a knot that he couldn't get over. The knot in his heart was in the capital. Unless one day, Jiang Xiu could step over it. Seeing through his father's thoughts, spiritual cultivation smiled faintly. So what if it was the capital? So what if it was the top rich and powerful family? It couldn't compare to his 100 years of spiritual cultivation. 3,000 worlds were like grass, and ordinary people were like dust and mud. Chapter 53. Riches and honor were naturally like this. If the poor caused trouble, no one would care. If the rich were deep in the mountains, people would look for them. That night, Jiang Xiu's house often had people knocking on the door. They were all neighbors who came to deliver things. If it wasn't fruit, then it was vegetables. However, no one came in to sit. They just put down the things and left. The family ate on the balcony, and there was no extra space in the house. Zhang Yi, who had always been a man of few words, said a few more words after drinking. You win some, you lose some. I used to envy the lives of the rich, but you will find that the lives of the rich are not free. Jiang Xiu knew that his father wasn't talking nonsense. His life had been full of ups and downs. He had encountered too many things. These were his words from the bottom of his heart. He was using his own experience to persuade Jiang Xiu. Jiang Yi said, "There is an old saying called worrying about gains and losses. If you don't have it, then you won't be afraid of losing it. It's like a person who worked hard to obtain wealth, but is always worried about losing it. It wasn't easy to marry a beautiful wife, but he is worried that she will run away with someone else. Therefore, being ordinary is true." Lin Yueling's eyes were smiling. She hadn't seen her husband like this for a long time. At this moment, she seemed to see the high-spirited and intelligent Jiang Yi. She teased him and said, "You never worried about me running away because I'm not beautiful enough." Jiang Yi said, "It's not that you're not beautiful enough. It's just that only my eyes can see your beauty." Jiang Xiu interrupted, "And me?" Lin Yueling couldn't help but laugh. "At least you know your place." Speaking of which, it wasn't Jiang Xiu who said that his mother was beautiful. When she was young, Lin Yueling could be considered a first-class beauty. In addition, she was the daughter of a rich family. Her temperament was definitely not worse than Cheng Lingsu and Yi Bing. Jiang Yi took another sip. As the spicy white wine flowed down his throat, he quickly picked up a few mouthfuls of food and said, "There are too many temptations in this world. Money, power, and beautiful women. No one can guarantee that they won't lose themselves in front of these. Therefore, people must be clear about what they want. They must walk towards their goal unswervingly and not be disturbed by anything outside." When he was young, Jiang Xiu couldn't remember if his father had taught him like this. However, after he went to prison, he didn't have such an opportunity. After he was released, he was very depraved. At this moment, Jiang Xiu knew that his father wanted to truly guide him. Although this sentence came 3,000 years too late, Jiang Xiu had already done so. It was precisely because his goal was resolute. After stepping on the path of cultivation, he would overcome all obstacles, bravely forging ahead, standing out from the countless experts of the immortal martial continent, achieving the spiritual cultivation that allowed him to roam unhindered in the immortal martial continent. Jiang Yi said, "A few days ago, Chang Hanlin's wife called to talk about you and Cheng Lingsu. Did something happen between the two of you?" Lin Yueling also curiously stared at Jiang Xiu's face. Jiang Xiu said, "Nothing. She came to talk to me about canceling the engagement. Some things had to be faced sooner or later. It was better to resolve it sooner rather than later." Jiang Yi asked, "Then what do you think?" Jiang Xiu said, "I don't have any objections." Their son's words caused Jiang Yi and Lin Yueling to feel very astonished. Jiang Xiu was at the age of youth and Cheng Lingsu was so beautiful. How could he not be moved and have such an indifferent expression? Jiang Yi said, this world is much more complicated and cruel than you think. Most of the time, people have to learn to protect themselves. Don't take advantage of others, but never let yourself suffer losses. Otherwise, others will think that you are easy to bully. From this sentence, Jiang Xiu could feel that his father had resentment against the Cheng family, because his life could be said to have been completely ruined by Cheng Hanlin. And Cheng Hanlin had always promised to marry his daughter to Jiang Xiu, to help the Jiang family postpone the marriage, and even to share most of the property as dowry. Now, the Cheng family wanted to cancel the engagement. How could Zhang Yi agree? A trace of coldness flashed in his eyes, and he looked extremely determined. Your father is right. Lin Yueling's face was unprecedentedly dignified. The Cheng family caused her to lose her wealth and splendor. She was separated from her husband for more than 10 years. She suffered hardships alone and lived with Jiang Xiu under others' roof. She was despised by the world. Didn't she hate them? Jiang Xiu realized that it was really difficult to cancel the engagement with the Cheng family. Even if he didn't want to marry Chang Lingsu, he was afraid that his parents wouldn't agree. Thinking of this, he frowned slightly. He said, "Mom, let's buy a house tomorrow and see where you like." As he said this, he handed over the 1 million yuan bank card given by Tang Wencheng. Lin Yueling said, "Let's live here first. We can buy a house with the rent we receive in a few months. The shops are all here. We can buy a suitable house nearby." Hearing Lin Yueling's words, Jiang Xiu didn't insist and took back the bank card. Zhang Yi and Lin Yueling were both people who had seen the world. After suddenly becoming rich, they didn't want to spend as much as they could. They couldn't wait to get back all the money they didn't spend in the past. Their minds were very calm. On the other hand, Jiang Xiu needed a house for himself. He had to cultivate every day, and it was inevitable that he would make noise. Even if he bought a house for his parents, he still needed one for himself. After dinner, Jiang Xiu called Tang Zhenshan. "Mr. Jiang." Jiang Xiu said, "I want to buy a house. Arrange it for me." His tone was as if he was ordering his own servant. Tang Zhenshan helped him today and spent hundreds of millions. The Department of Spiritual Cultivation wanted to promote him. In the Qianwu continent, many people hoped to be promoted by the Department of Spiritual Cultivation. It was just like how ancient officials hoped to be promoted by the emperor. In his eyes, it was naturally a gift. Tang Zhenshan said, "Coincidentally, I have a villa there. It was supposed to be used for retirement, but I'm still used to living in the military compound. I still miss the feeling of being a soldier. Why don't Mr. Jiang accept it and live there?" "Okay." Not long after, Tang Wencheng came to Yunhu South Road and gave the villa key to Jiang Xiu. They walked all the way up the wetland villa area. At this time, the sky was dark. The wetland was covered with fog, and the villa looked ethereal. Good place, good feng shui. Stepping on the cobblestone corridor, they walked toward their new home. Suddenly, a man and 2 women walked toward them. It was a middle-aged couple with a beautiful girl. This wasn't a coincidence. The girl saw Jiang Xiu and blushed. She didn't know whether to call him or not. After a while, she opened her mouth and said in a natural and unrestrained tone, "Jiang Xiu, why are you here?" The girl was his classmate, Yi Bing. "Hey, what a coincidence." Seeing the man beside Yi Bing, he said, "This must be Uncle Yi." "Hello, Uncle Yi." "Hello, Auntie." How polite. The Department of Spiritual Cultivation had never been so polite before. After seeing his parents today, he lowered his attitude and became more down to earth. If he opened his mouth and said, "This lord," again, Father Yi and Mother Ye's faces would probably turn green with anger. Yi Ilyang heard rumors at the banquet, so he wasn't in the mood to attend the banquet. It was because of this that he avoided the supernatural incident. However, when he went home and asked his wife about it, it was true. He was so angry that his lungs exploded. "You're that Jiang Xiu?" Yi Bing's beautiful eyes immediately widened. "Daddy knows Jiang Xiu." Shua, her charming face flushed red in an instant. Even her ears were completely red. It must be that Mommy didn't keep her word and told Daddy about how she and Zhang Xiu were caught in the act. She really didn't have the face to stay any longer and ran off with her long legs. Bing bing. Seeing this, Mother Yi quickly chased after her, afraid that something would happen to her precious daughter. Zhang Xiu didn't expect Yi Bing's skin to be so thin. He found it funny and awkward. Speaking of which, he was really helpless. How could such a situation happen that day? Seeing Zhang Xiu smile, Yi Iliang frowned. I heard that your family owns a fruit stall. Zhang Xiu said, yes. Yi Iliang said, I heard that your father was in prison? Zhang Xiu said, yes. Yi Iliang said, do you know who I am? I know. Yi Iliang nodded. You're very calm and courageous. I heard that you're also quite skilled. You once defeated the entire martial arts department of No. 1 Middle School and defeated more than 200 of Daily Eye's subordinates in the entertainment city. Zhang Xiu said, everyone has their strengths. Yi Iliang smiled disdainfully. Your martial arts cultivation isn't weak. You have a good relationship with the Tang family's young master, Tang Wenchong. It's not too much to find a girl as beautiful as Bing Bing. It's just a pity that Yi Bing is different from other beautiful girls. Zhang Xiu asked, what's the difference? Yi Iliang said proudly, the biggest difference between her and other girls is that she's my daughter. You want to be her man? No. Enough. Qualifications. Cool. He enunciated every word with a look of disdain in his eyes. He was shockingly confident. Zhang Xiu asked, oh? Is that so? Then how do I qualify? Yi Iliang said, in terms of family affairs, martial arts is at the military level, and literature is at the department level. It's just ability. Before 30, martial arts is at the school level, and literature is at the district level. And your martial arts cultivation is not bad. It's not difficult for you to apply to a famous university and win a free combat championship, but that's all. After saying that, he walked past Zhang Xiu and patted Zhang Xiu's shoulder lightly, as if comforting him. Comforting him that reality was so cruel, comforting his painful and unwilling soul, and comforting him that he had lost his daughter, Yi Bing. Chapter 54. Zhang Xiu smiled faintly and looked back at Yi Iliang's back. He said calmly, Ben, Yi Bing and I are just classmates. There's nothing else. That's your wishful thinking. Yi Iliang also looked back and smiled faintly. That's for the best. After saying that, he strode away, but secretly shook his head. His evaluation of Zhang Xiu dropped a few notches. He was caught in bed with Bing Bing, but because of the elder's obstruction, he pushed away all responsibility. Such a man was irresponsible and lacked courage. He had already lost the foundation for success. He originally wanted to guide this young man and let him stay away from his precious daughter. But now, he no longer cared about Zhang Xiu. A group of people walked down from the dark. They were silent and solemn, and followed Yi Iliang. They were actually Yi Iliang's bodyguards. At first glance, they were all extraordinary people. Looking at the status of these bodyguards, they were much higher than Tang Jinshan's. When the old man in the lead passed by Zhang Xiu, he said casually, young man, young master hasn't thought of guiding the younger generation for a long time. Maybe you still don't know what you've missed? Zhang Xiu said, what? Seeing that Zhang Xiu was still ignorant, the old man felt sad. He said, since you asked, I'll give you some advice. He glanced at Zhang Xiu and sneered. Young master doesn't need anyone. As long as you admit your relationship with Miss and agree to give up, young master will give you a future in return. But you missed it because of your ignorance and cowardice. You originally had the chance to become someone like young master, but now you're at most like me. With Yi Iliang's guidance, Zhang Xiu could still achieve something even if he couldn't become an ambitious person like Yi Iliang or Tang Jinshan. But now, he could only rely on his fists. One was the master, the other was the servant. Even if he reached the top, he would only be the top servant. He could only depend on others forever. After that, The old man walked past him and patted Jiang Xiu's shoulder gently. He seemed to be comforting him for his ignorance and stupidity, comforting him for the storm in his heart, and comforting him for his future regret. Then, without looking at Jiang Xiu again, he walked away. Jiang Xiu blinked and said indifferently, "The gift in your eyes may be a joke in my eyes." "What?" When the old man heard this, his face immediately turned cold. He suddenly turned around and said, "Arrogant and ignorant." With a flick of his sleeves, he strode away. This old man had reached the transcendent state and had already reached the level of a martial arts grandmaster. However, in the eyes of the Department of Spiritual Cultivation, not to mention him, Zhongqing City, Jiangnan Province, the entire Hua Nation, and even this planet were nothing. No matter how talented you are, no matter how powerful you are, you will not be able to stop the spiritual cultivation. After 100 years, you will be nothing but dust. The old man walked through the river corridor and followed Yi Ilyong's footsteps. The former's eyes swept across the misty wetland water surface. Under the scenery after dusk, it was like a fairyland. He said, "Elder Lin, I saw you say something to that kid just now." Yi Ilyong was interested. "Don't tell me you are teaching him to deal with me again?" It was rare for the host and guest to joke like this. It was really because Jiang Xiu was too insignificant. Unexpectedly, the old man's face was gloomy and his tone was stiff with anger. "A child who is completely ignorant of the world." Yi Ilyong said in surprise, "What's wrong? Did that kid offend you, Elder Lin?" The old man said, "He is so ignorant that it is ridiculous. He actually said that the young master's support is worthless in his eyes. It is a joke." "What?" Yi Ilyong could not believe his ears. Arrogant. This was not arrogance but ignorance. Forget it, let's not care about him. Elder Lin, I received news that Lin Junbei is back. It seems like the rumors are true. This time he came back and said that he wants to rule Jiang City. A mere Lin Junbei dares to say that he wants to rule Jiang City. The old man felt that this matter was really laughable. "I will have to trouble Elder Lin this time." Elder Lin smiled faintly. "Young master, don't worry. Lin Junbei will not be able to do anything in my hands. If not for the fact that young master was young and had no subordinates, you would not have to look for Tang Junshan to deal with Lin Junbei. If not, you would not have given up such a huge Jiang City. Otherwise, Jiang City would have to respect you." Yi Ilyong said, "Misfortune is a blessing in disguise. If not for the fact that I was forced to leave that year, my old man would not have arranged for Elder Lin to be under me. It is fine. It is only 10 years later. It is not too late." Elder Lin looked at Yi Ilyong and felt that the young master's heart was calmer. "But if you want to fight for Jiang City now, you will have to fight with Tang Junshan. That old man has been in Jiang City for more than 10 years. He is not easy to deal with." Yi Ilyong muttered, "Lin Junbei is really petty. He is not ruthless at all. He only chopped off one of Tang Junshan's hands and let him go. It seems like what happened back then scared him quite a bit. However, Tang Junshan is already in his 70s. Plus, he has a broken hand. I am only in my 40s. I can exhaust him to death." Jiang Xiu entered the villa. The furnishings inside were filled with an antique flavor and were very elegant. It could be seen that Tang Junshan was very attentive to this villa. After all, it was for his retirement. A lifetime of glory. He must enjoy it when he is old. His eyes wandered around the villa. After identifying the location of the feng shui, he chose a master bedroom to stay in. Just as he was about to cultivate, his phone rang. He received a text message. He opened it and saw that it was from Yi Bing. "Yi Bing, Jiang Xiu, you bastard. You made me get punished by my mother again. Jiang Xiu, what does it have to do with me? Yi Bing, if you didn't come to find me, would my mother punish me? Jiang Xiu, what a joke. My new home is here. Yi Bing, you live here? Who are you kidding? Bastard Jiang Xiu, don't let me see you in school. Otherwise, I will beat you up every time I see you." After saying that, Yi Bing threw the phone on the bed. She was so angry. But for some reason, her face was still red. Hot, very hot. Zhang Xiu also threw his phone on the bed. After a while, he said, "Ignorant, stupid. You want to fight with me? Do you think I have no magic power in my body when I just came back? Now that I have awakened 2 of my powers, even masters are no match for me. You are just a little girl. How dare you say that I will beat you up every time I see you? If you said that to the schoolmaster of Qianqing School in the immortal martial continent, you would be sentenced to death." "Humph. Stupid girl." He snorted coldly. Then, he sat down cross-legged and started cultivating. There was still some energy left from the last Yin soul. On Earth, where spiritual power was completely exhausted, this bit of energy was quite precious to him. Naturally, he had to absorb it all. It was like when there was a famine. Even if you used to eat delicacies every day, now you would lick the bottom of the bowl clean. Although it was very shabby, he couldn't care less about spiritual cultivation anymore. The divine cultivation technique he used was a very tyrannical cultivation technique for Protoss. It forcibly absorbed energy from the outside world into the body and made it his own. Although it could increase his cultivation in a short period of time, it was inevitable that his realm would be unstable. Once something went wrong or he was injured, his realm would easily drop. Therefore, on the immortal martial continent, although Protoss bodies were strong, once they were injured, their recovery period would be much longer than other people's. However, it wasn't that there was no way to make up for this shortcoming. It could purify energy and stabilize one's realm. Zhang Xiu had countless similar techniques in his mind. "Let's do this." His eyes suddenly opened. Just as he started to purify his magic power, he felt a mysterious energy fluctuation in the room. Immediately, he got off the bed and narrowed his eyes, searching for that mysterious energy fluctuation. This made him very excited. If there was an energy body, it would be a heavenly treasure for a divine cultivator like him. After passing through the corridor, he arrived in front of a wooden door. He casually pushed it open. It was an ancient-looking tea room. In front of the tea room was a shrine. The shrine didn't have any incense. The energy didn't come from the shrine, but from a mask placed on top of the shrine. Zhang Xiu reached out and took off the mask. The mask was a bit like the bronze statues in Sichuan. It had big eyes, a big mouth, and a somewhat sinister face. The workmanship was very rough, and there was even rust on it. Zhang Xiu was very shocked. This is the power of a god. Chapter 55. Zhang Xiu was indeed surprised, but after thinking about it carefully, it wasn't surprising. The blood in his body could awaken the Protoss, which meant that the mortals on Earth were indeed the descendants of the Protoss. It wasn't surprising that they left behind the relics of God. However, he was surprised that it still existed after so many years. He turned the mask over. The back was bumpy, uneven, and shapeless. From this, he could tell that it wasn't a mask, but a broken bronze statue. Zhang Xiu's slender fingers lightly stroked the surface of the statue, and the statue emitted a wave of energy, causing Zhang Xiu's fingers to tremble slightly. His expression was incomparably solemn, and after muttering to himself for a moment, he spat out 4 words, "Divine Tao Faith." If Zhang Xiu guessed correctly, the broken bronze statue should be a statue of God. This image, Zhang Xiu had seen countless Protoss, and each Protoss had its own characteristics. He didn't dare to say that he had seen all of them, but he had seen most of them. He had even read about some of the dead Protoss in books, but he hadn't seen anything similar. There was a problem with this bronze statue, which was that it couldn't really record the face of the Protoss. Usually, believers would only make a statue of God to obscure the true appearance of God. It could be said that it was to make the statue mysterious or to avoid blasphemy, but it couldn't be seen clearly. In addition, the rough carving and the corrosion of time made it difficult to recognize the statue. Of course, there was also the possibility that the statue's characteristics were on the torso or other places. God's faith is so weak. It must have lost its inheritance. If the god's faith was still there, its power would definitely be more than this. Such a small amount of power might not even be enough to transmit a voice. However, this gave Zhang Xiu hope. No matter how thin a mosquito was, it was still meat. He took out his phone and called Tang Jinshan again. The old man was already asleep, and the one who answered the phone was Dong. When he saw that it was Zhang Xiu calling, he immediately woke the old man up. Although he felt sorry for the old man, he didn't dare to neglect Zhang Xiu. This was the old man's order. No matter when or where Mr. Zhang's call was, he had to be the first to answer it. Statue of God? This bronze mask did have the power of faith, and Tang Jinshan worshipped it on the altar. He must have some understanding of the bronze mask, or else he wouldn't worship it. Oh right, statue of God. Tang Jinshan suddenly remembered that he made an altar in the villa's tea room. He would do his homework every day. After placing a statue of God, it was easier for him to enter the state of things. The renovation had already been done, but he didn't move in later, so he forgot about it. What's wrong with that statue of God's? Zhang Xiu asked, "Where did you get this statue mask? Do you have any more?" It got us this statue of God's mask was damaged, and the power on it was too weak. If it was complete, then the statue's power would be much stronger, and it should be able to increase its power. No, as for its origin. Tang Jinshan on the other side of the phone thought for a moment, then said, "Mr. Zhang, have you heard of a saying? It's called, 'When soldiers gather, the gods open the door.'" No. Zhang Xiu said. In his previous life, his knowledge was very shallow, and he didn't know much about ghosts and gods. At that time, he even thought that ghosts and gods didn't exist in this world. He didn't know about these things himself. Next to Tang Jinshan, a young nurse wearing a pink nurse uniform took out a cushion for Tang Jinshan to lean on. The old man organized his thoughts and said, "A few hundred years ago, there was a huge disaster in the East Continent to the south of Zhongqing. After the disaster, there was a plague. At that time, there were starving people on the road, and the people had no way to make a living. Just as the people were in despair, a strange cult suddenly appeared. It was called the Heavenly Tao. Their slogan was, 'When soldiers gather, the gods open the door.' As long as you believe in them, you will have the opportunity to become a Tao soldier. You will be able to open the door of time and space for the immortals to ascend to the immortal world and become immortals. People in despair will see hope. That is very scary." The cult developed very quickly. But later, for some reason, it suddenly disappeared. Just like how he appeared. No, it was even faster. It was as if they all disappeared overnight. Zhang Xiu asked, "This statue of God's mask is the statue of God that the Heavenly Tao worships?" Tang Jinshan said, "That's right. This statue of God doesn't belong to me. It belongs to a mutant in Zhongqing. Mr. Zhang has seen it before. This person is Lin Zhenbei. This person is a fanatic, and he has always wanted to become a soldier. Martial artists have 3 stages: outer realm, inner realm, and transformative realm. After transcending the transformative realm, one can break through the void and ascend. Lin Zhenbei believes that this is consistent with the teachings of the Heavenly Tao. Once one reaches that level, the gods will open the doors of the immortal realm and receive them." Zhang Xiu was very sure that the 3 stages of martial cultivators referred to the Qi refinement realm of the immortal martial continent. The Tao soldiers referred to the foundation establishment stage of the immortal martial continent, which was also the foundation establishment stage of the immortal martial continent. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they could break through the void and ascend to the heavens. As for the gods opening the door, it was hard to say. Tang Jinshan said, "Lin Zhenbei came back this time to take revenge on me. His main purpose is to become a soldier." "Mr. Zhang, do you believe in the Heavenly Tao?" Zhang Xiu said, "When this sovereign was very young, there was an old man who told this sovereign that there were immortals living in the mountains. When I was young, everyone believed it. But when I grew up, no one believed it anymore." Tang Jinshan said, "After a while, there will be a Heavenly Tao convention in the East Continent to compete for soldiers. Zhang Xiu was surprised. Didn't you say that the heavenly Tao has disappeared? Tang Zhenshan said, it disappeared back then, but there are still people who use the name of the heavenly Tao to do things. As for whether it is the heavenly Tao from back then, so many years have passed, and no one can verify it. However, the attraction of a soldier is no less than back then. Zhang Xiu said in his heart. Once a martial artist reaches the peak of transforming Jing, he will definitely be able to sense the existence of a higher realm. Then, he will believe in the matter of breaking through the void and ascending to immortality. Mr. Zhang. Lin Zhenbei is intimidated by Mr. Zhang's invincible might and doesn't dare to act rashly. But if the matter of this soldier is true, and he coincidentally becomes a soldier, then it will be very troublesome. Ha ha ha! Zhang Xiu laughed loudly when he heard this. This sudden laughter made Tang Zhenshan's hair stand on end. He felt Zhang Xiu's infinite contempt, but he didn't know what it was. We can go and have some fun. If there was really a Protoss left behind on Earth, it would be an opportunity to gain power. Tang Zhenshan said happily, okay, everything depends on Mr. Zhang. Lin Zhenbei's survival was like a fishbone stuck in his throat. Zhang Xiu hung up the phone and played with the mask in his hand. Then, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He wanted to try and see if the god of Tian Taoism was still around. Originally, he thought that it was definitely not around, but now he had some doubts that it might still be around. The reason was very simple. It was because the legend of the soldier was still around. If it was fake, there was no way for it to flourish again after it was cut off. He put the mask back and opened the drawer. Sure enough, there were incense candles inside. After taking them out, he lit them with a lighter and inserted them into the drawer. Then, he began to chant. Slowly, green smoke rose in spirals. At first, there was nothing unusual, but as he chanted the spell, the white smoke actually gathered and didn't disperse. It's really here. Zhang Xiu only used the invincible incantation. The green smoke continued to rise and began to gather into a shape at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was the shape of a human body. Seeing this scene, Zhang Xiu's lips unconsciously curled into a smile, but the coldness in his eyes became stronger. In the end, it formed into a lifelike image of an old man with a white beard. What believer is so diligent? The voice was vast, as if it came from the horizon. The light flashed again, and the lifelike image became even more real. Although it was condensed from smoke, it was dressed in ancient clothes and looked calm. Even the expression on its face could be seen clearly. However, what awaited him was Zhang Xiu's mocking and cold eyes. His expression suddenly changed, and he shouted, "Who are you?" This was because he felt that Zhang Xiu's expression was not friendly, and there was a very dangerous aura. This made him feel cold and terrified. Suddenly, Zhang Xiu stretched out a hand. He turned pale with fright. Chapter 56. It was too sudden. The old man did not even have time to react. Jiang Chen had already reached out his hand, but the old man was only surprised for a moment, because he did not have a body, he was just a wisp of smoke. Even if Jiang Chen attacked him, he would not be in any danger. He then revealed a mocking smile, ignorant human. However, when Zhang Xiu's hand grabbed him, he felt as if his soul was being grabbed. There was also a sharp pain. Suddenly, his expression changed drastically. He was like a mouse that was being strangled. He screamed miserably. Spirit binding technique. At this moment, the black pupils in Zhang Xiu's eyes had already melted. His eyes were pitch black, revealing a strange appearance, bringing with it a terrifying cold light. His mouth was continuously chanting incantations, the sound of incantations sounding out in waves. "You're not a human." The old man struggled with all his might, and a strong light burst out from the smoke. His soul was forcibly pulled out by Zhang Xiu. The old man was terrified. He had never heard of anyone who had such an extraordinary method to actually use the smoke to directly grab a person's soul. Ha ha ha! Zhang Xiu laughed excitedly. Under the terrified gaze of the old man, Jiang Xiu opened his mouth and took a deep breath. The surrounding light was sucked into his mouth. He actually wanted to directly swallow the soul. This time, it was truly incredible. Ah! The old man was scared out of his wits, and he screamed loudly. The suction force from Jiang Xiu's mouth became more and more intense, and an incomparably dazzling light burst out from his mouth, illuminating the whole tea room. However, in the next second, Jiang Xiu's face suddenly became strange, and the light dimmed, and in a flash, it became pitch black. The soul took the opportunity to escape, and the smoke suddenly gathered on the statue mask and disappeared without a trace. Damn it! Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed with anger. In that instant, his divine energy was unable to continue. The spirit-devouring technique was an extremely high-level divine technique. It could swallow souls and greatly nourish the divine body. It was very likely that it could allow him to quickly enter the third mystic and form the third divine pattern. However, the spiritual cultivation forgot that he was no longer the spiritual cultivation of the past, and his current divine energy was not enough for him to swallow a soul. The result was that half of the divine technique was used, and his divine energy was unable to continue, and his opponent escaped. Bang! With a crisp sound, the statue placed on the table cracked, and broke into two halves. This action was a bit like patching up a hole. That person was probably scared out of his wits, and who wouldn't be scared? Suddenly having his soul grabbed and eaten was simply a nightmare. Jiang Xiu was angry that he had missed a chance to raise his cultivation. None of the prey that I've set my eyes on has ever been able to escape. He picked up the shattered statue mask, and the remaining divine energy on it had completely disappeared. Right now, the statue mask could only be considered scrap metal. The good thing was that it was made of bronze, and with its age, Tang Jinshan could wrap it up and pass it off as an ancient magical treasure. He might be able to swindle 1 or 2 million out of it. Throwing the mask aside, he returned to his room and began to cultivate. It didn't take long for him to absorb the remnant soul energy in the pearl, and then he began to refine his divine energy. He chose the most orthodox divine cultivation technique, the Tao Heart Divine Seed Technique. The Tao Heart Divine Seed Technique was the most primitive way to refine divine energy. It was like a seed that was planted and then sprouted again. After it matured, everything would be concentrated on a single seed, and then the seed would be planted again, and it would sprout and grow again. This process repeated over and over again, continuously refining divine energy. Pop, 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 pop. His blood was boiling like water. Jiang Xiu was slightly surprised. When he condensed the divine energy in his body into a seed and planted it on top of his divine energy, the speed at which it grew was beyond his expectations. According to his estimation, it would take at least an hour, but it seemed to have only taken a few minutes. After planting the seed, the speed at which his divine energy grew again was also beyond his imagination. This is truly a surprise to this venerable. Jiang Xiu's body was actually very suitable for this kind of purification technique. Feeling the rapid cultivation speed, even the spiritual cultivation couldn't help but reveal a joyful smile. The speed of cultivation was linked to one's talent. The faster the cultivation speed, the higher the level of the divine body Jiang Xiu would awaken. Although it was impossible to judge the potential of a divine cultivator in the early stages and how far he could grow in the end, it was definitely a very good sign. This made Jiang Xiu, a cultivation maniac, even more interested. When he completed the first cycle of cultivation, the purity of his divine energy made a qualitative leap. The blood in his body vibrated like tiny particles of dust, as if it was trying to break free from some kind of shackle. Evolving. The spiritual cultivation immediately became nervous. But before he could even react, with a boom, his Protoss bloodline and blood essence seemed to explode, and a powerful force spontaneously arose. The divine energy in his body suddenly increased by a large margin. If someone saw Jiang Xiu at this moment, his entire body was bursting with a layer of flame-like light. Looks like this divine body is indeed not bad. Jiang Xiu could be considered experienced and knowledgeable, but he had never heard of a divine body that could be awakened by purifying divine energy. It would only appear if one had encountered a long bottleneck, and the last time he had broken through was only a week ago. Could it be that I took the wrong path in the past? According to this speed, it was much faster than cultivation. Even when Zhang Xiu had just arrived at the Qianwu continent and displayed an incomparably monstrous cultivation talent that made countless geniuses bow their heads, his cultivation speed wasn't this fast. What is going on? As expected, a new divine vein appeared on Zhang Xiu's arm. There were already 3 divine veins on his arm, and they were placed without any pattern. This was another good sign. If the divine body was weak, there would be fewer divine veins and fewer veins. The 3 veins could more or less be seen, but now he couldn't see anything at all. This meant that there were now more veins on the divine body, and naturally, it was even more extraordinary. Is the Protoss bloodline of the people on Earth this strong? The spiritual energy on Earth had withered, and there were no immortal cultivators. Everyone was immortal. Logically speaking, even if their ancestors were Protoss, they couldn't be that strong. It was precisely because of this idea that Zhang Xiu felt very helpless when he chose to become a divine cultivator, but now it seemed that this was not the case at all. This doesn't make sense. There was one thing that Zhang Xiu was certain of. The history of Earth was very long, and the history of mankind alone was tens of thousands of years. It was said that mankind on Earth had been destroyed twice. Of course, these were all groundless inferences made by scientists. It can't be that those scientists guessed correctly, right? Unknowingly, the sky outside was already bright. When he looked at the time, it was already 9 o'clock in the morning. He was late for class, but spiritual cultivation didn't want to be an obedient child. He took his time to wash up before leaving the house. The villa was far away from the school. After Zhang Xiu entered a 5-star hotel and had a luxurious breakfast, the morning classes were already over by the time he arrived at school. When he entered the classroom, Yi Bing inconspicuously approached him and said, "What's wrong? Are you so scared by me that you don't dare to come to school?" It wasn't uncommon for a student to threaten to beat up another student, and that student was too scared to come to school. This morning, when Yi Bing saw that Zhang Xiu didn't come to school, this image flashed through her mind. She felt that she had become a bad student, and her heart was filled with guilt for causing her classmates to be too scared to come to school. When she saw Zhang Xiu appear, she finally heaved a sigh of relief. She planned to cancel her very frightening sentence of, "I'll beat you up every time I see you." Zhang Xiu looked at the girl in front of him who was unbelievably beautiful and stupid, and said, "I'm so scared." He was really scared. He was scared to death because of his stupidity. Yi Bing said, "It's good that you know how to be scared. Let's see if you still dare to provoke me in the future. I'll let you off for now, but don't block me near my house in the future. If there's anything, send me a text message." After she finished speaking, she fiddled with her long black hair and walked away proudly. Ignorant, extremely stupid. The following days passed peacefully, and classes were as usual. However, the college entrance exam was approaching, and the learning atmosphere in the class became more and more tense. Under the influence of this atmosphere, Zhang Xiu also picked up a book for the first time and took a few glances at it. With the Protoss's memory and comprehension ability, he could even comprehend the heavenly Tao, let alone memorizing a few words and equations. On this day, Zhang Xiu was in class as usual when Tang Wenchong called him. The heavenly Tao's Tao soldier ceremony was about to begin. Chapter 57. The East Continent was south of Zhong City and close to the sea. 70% of the land was mountains, and only 30% was farmland. Hundreds of years ago, the Heavenly Tao sect emerged from a great natural disaster here, leaving behind very strong historical relics. There were many temples of the Heavenly Tao sect located on the mountainsides of the East Continent. The 3 words, Heavenly Tao sect, were also written on the temples of each village. The day of the Heavenly Tao sect's Tao soldier ceremony was called the All Tao Festival by the people here. This time, Tang Jinshan did not come. He was old and had a broken arm. He could not withstand the torment of the journey, so Tang Wenchong accompanied him. After the car entered the East Continent, it began to take a detour around the mountain roads. Compared to Zhong City, this place was more than 10 years behind. Many movies and TV shows from the 1980s and 1990s would even be filmed here. This day was not only the All Dao Festival. Many underground forces in Zhongnan would rush here. It was also the battle for the king of the underground forces in Zhong City. Young Master Tang, you're finally here. Before the Tang family came here, everything was naturally arranged. The car drove to a place that looked like a village temple and an ancestral hall. Before the car stopped, a middle-aged man ran over. It was Dalei. There was a beautiful woman in her 30s beside him. She should be a local and was here to receive him. Young Master Tang. When he saw Zhang Xiu coming down, Dalei greeted him respectfully, Mr. Zhang. Seeing this, the beautiful woman with a clear mind looked at Zhang Xiu with sparkling eyes. She thought that this must be a big shot. She even realized that even Tang Wenchong was standing behind him. From the way he stood, the group of people seemed to respect him. Master Lei, this is? Dalei said, Zhang Luoxia, Mr. Zhang. He was unwilling to introduce Zhang Xiu to this beautiful woman. He felt that she was not qualified. However, in front of Zhang Xiu, he did not dare to be rash. He could only introduce him as such. So it's Mr. Zhang. It's an honor to have Mr. Zhang here. You're welcome, Zhang Xiu said. This was an ordinary polite phrase, but when it came from Zhang Xiu, who despised everything, it surprised Tang Wenchong and Dalei. They looked at each other. When they walked inside, Dalei said softly, Young master, something's not right. Mr. Zhang doesn't care about anyone, but he's polite to this woman. Could it be that Mr. Zhang has taken a fancy to her? I noticed that Mr. Zhang's eyes were looking at her for a while. Tang Wenchong said, Mr. Zhang likes this style? The beautiful woman was in her 30s, which was the most mature age for women. She wore a well-fitting chong sam, which accentuated her curvaceous figure. The slit extended all the way to her thighs, revealing her shining white thighs. She wore a pair of black flats, which made her look somewhat charming. Both of them smiled knowingly. In his mind, he planned to handle this matter properly. Mr. Zhang, this way. However, Zhang Xiu said, I'm familiar with the roads here. So Mr. Zhang has been here before. Zhang Xiu had not only been here before, but he had spent most of his childhood here. Speaking of which, he had a lot of fate with Dong Zhou. And all of this fate came from when he was young. At that time, his family was still very rich. Zhang Yi was very busy, and so was Lin Yueling. There was no one to take care of little Zhang Xiu, so they found a nanny. The nanny was from Dongzhou. After the Zhang family's accident, Lin Yueling was too busy to take care of herself. It was this nanny who remembered Zhang Yi's family's past kindness, so she took care of Zhang Xiu for them. Zhang Xiu studied here from primary school to the second year of junior high school. It was not until Zhang Yi was released from prison that he moved back to Zhang City to prepare for the high school entrance examination in the third year of junior high school. However, Zhang Xiu had never heard of the All Dao Festival. Perhaps it was because he was young back then, and this event was carried out secretly. Stepping into the mountains, there were green mountains and clear rivers. More than 3,000 years seemed like a lifetime ago, but nothing had changed here. You don't have to follow me. I'll go by myself. The corners of his mouth raised into a smile. Of course, he was going to find his buddies who had grown up with him. Tang Wenchong anxiously called out, Mr. Zhang. However, Zhang Xiu had already stepped onto the mountain and left. I wonder how Xiang's mother is, and how Chu Qianqing and the others are doing. Are you guys all right? When Chu Qianqing saw Zhang Xiu, he rushed up in a few big steps and punched him in the chest. He said angrily, You brat, you finally know how to come back. You've been gone for more than 3 years. Zhang Xiu said with a smile, Aren't I back now? In his heart, he thought, It's been more than 3,000 years. Who would have thought that I would be able to return to this place again? Okay. You know that young Master Xiu went to study in Zhang City and entered the best second high school in Zhang City, and he's about to take the college entrance examination. A young man next to him was about the same age as Zhang Xiu. His name was Danian. "You brat." Chu Qianqing was unwilling to give up and punched him again. He grew up with Zhang Xiu and was the son of Ah Xiang's sister-in-law. Before Zhang Yi's accident, he also lived with the Zhang family. Zhang Xiu lacked companions, so the two children could play together very well. Looking at these companions, a thought flashed through spiritual cultivation's mind. It was really good to be reborn. In his previous life, after the Zhang family's accident, Zhang Xiu was very down and out. He didn't have the face to come back. Later, he lost contact with Chu Qianqing. Many people were like this. Childhood playmates all had their own worlds when they grew up and gradually drifted apart. They only hid the happiness of growing up in their hearts forever. Danian patted a small car next to him and said, "How is it?" Zhang Xiu made a surprised expression and said, "Not bad, young Master Nian. You can even drive a car. You've become a car owner." Danian's father was a village official and had a lot of money. One of the most important sources of income was the Wan Dao festival. Danian said, "Just over 200,000 yuan. It's inconvenient to go in and out of the mountains without a car." In the East Continent, Danian could be considered a second-generation young master. Although he might be a third or fourth-tier young master, he was still awesome. "Get in the car and call a few girls who used to play with us. Let's go to a restaurant." When Chu Qianqing heard that they were going to a restaurant, he became excited. "Hey, I was waiting for young Master Nian to say that. Today, let's go eat barbecue. Ah Min's family made a farmhouse barbecue. It's delicious. Let's go." Sitting in the car, Danian drove and talked at the same time. "Young Master Xiu, you came to the right place. Do you remember when we were young, there were a few days when the adults didn't let us go out? You can see it now. I'll definitely let you see it." Zhang Xiu smiled faintly. He already knew what it was. Chu Qianqing also said, "That's right, young Master Xiu. The first time I saw it, I was dumbfounded. A lot of big shots came. They dropped some money between their fingers. It's enough for us to live for a year. Take it and gamble. If we're lucky, we'll get tens of thousands." The car stopped at the barbecue restaurant. The two beauties were already waiting at the door. One of them was a tall girl. She was more than 7 meters tall. She wore tight jeans that hugged her buttocks tightly. Her legs were straight. The other one was slightly shorter. She was also about 65 meters tall. Her skin was snow-white and her appearance was elegant and refined like a lily. The tall one was Xiao Min. The beautiful one was Chen Shui. The water in the East Continent was very nourishing. It was a place that produced beautiful women. Two great beauties. Look who's here. When Xiao Min saw Zhang Xiu, she shouted, "Zhang Xiu, you little brat. You still dare to come back. See how I'll deal with you." When spiritual cultivation left, she was in the second year of junior high. Girls developed early. Xiao Min was already tall. At that time, she was almost half a head taller than Zhang Xiu. Chen Shui was much more refined. She covered her mouth and chuckled. Slap. Xiao Min was chasing after Zhang Xiu. Chu Qianqing looked at her round butt and boldly slapped it. Xiao Min screamed. "You bullied my brother. Are you looking for a beating? Damn you, Qianqing. How dare you take advantage of me?" Xiao Min changed her target and was about to chase after Chu Qianqing. Danian wretchedly signaled Zhang Xiu to take the opportunity to hit Xiao Min's butt. Zhang Xiu quickly shook his head. He thought, why would I take advantage of a girl like this? When Danian saw that he wasn't going to make a move, he slapped Xiao Min's round butt. Xiao Min screamed again. She was already so old. Of course, he couldn't hit her. However, the children in the countryside were more wild. They seemed to enjoy it. Toxic youth. Chen Shui, help. Xiao Min gritted her teeth in anger. Chen Shui hurriedly shook her head. At this moment, a group of people was walking along the mountain path. Each of them had an extraordinary aura. It was obvious that they all had great backgrounds. The one walking at the front was actually Yi Bing's biological father, Yi Ilyang. Beside him was that old man. When Yi Ilyang saw Zhang Xiu, he was stunned. Zhang Xiu also saw him. Yi Ilyang frowned. "Why are you here?" Chapter 58. Zhang Xiu put away the kind smile he used to treat his childhood friend and didn't have the slightest intention of replying. Yi Ilyang saw Zhang Xiu's arrogance and was very annoyed in his heart. He originally wanted to teach him a lesson, but in front of so many people, he didn't want to lower his status. He coldly said, "This is not a place for you to stay." On the day of the All Dao festival in the eastern state, it was not a big deal to kill someone on the blacklist. That was why the adults in the village didn't let the children watch the All Dao festival. Behind Yi Ilyang, there were many strong people besides Elder Lin. These people all had a terrible murderous aura. When their eyes swept over you, it made you shudder. Seeing these big shots, Chu Qianqing and the others were silent. They didn't dare to make a sound. "You're on your own." Yi Ilyang didn't look at Zhang Xiu anymore. He walked past them with an arrogant expression. Zhang Xiu and the others could only salute him with their eyes. "Boss Yi, is he a member of the Yi family?" Yi Ilyang sneered and said disdainfully, "Him? Is he worthy? He's not even qualified to guard the door of the Yi family." Everyone suddenly understood. If they wanted to follow Yi Ilyang and rely on the Yi family, they had to know the Yi family's people's network. They understood when Yi Ilyang said that. An insignificant person, even Boss Yi didn't like him. When they were far away, Chu Qianqing and the others came back to their senses. Dunyan said, "Young Master Xiu, do you know him?" Zhang Xiu said casually, "I've seen him once." "What a pity." Dunyan sighed and pointed to the last person in Yi Ilyang's group. "Do you see the person at the back? He's Ao Fei from Lijiao in the Eastern State. He's the #1 gangster in the Eastern State." When he said that, the faces of the people present changed. "He's Ao Fei?" Even Zhang Xiu had an impression of this person. When he was still studying here, Ao Fei was a famous gangster in the Eastern State. At that time, the youth was afraid and curious about such a person. Danian nodded solemnly. "That's right, it's him. When I saw him, he was surrounded by people, but he was following behind that man like a lackey." "Then how strong is this man?" Everyone present was shocked beyond words. Danian shook his head regretfully and said, "That's why I said it's a pity. If young Master Xiu can make friends with that man, you will definitely have a meteoric rise and your achievements will be limitless." Zhang Xiu smiled and declined to comment. Chu Qianqing said, "Young Master Nian is right. Nowadays, having a backer is really important. I'll take you to make a fortune later?" Zhang Xiu looked over in surprise. Chu Qianqing winked at him mysteriously, which made Zhang Xiu confused. The other three also acted strangely. "But you have to be prepared." Zhang Xiu asked, "What do you mean?" Danian acted as if he didn't hear it and sat down by himself. Little Min and Chan Shui's pretty faces were slightly pale. Little Min said, "Why don't we not take the little guy? Not everyone can stand it." Little Min looked at Zhang Xiu. At this time, she had the time to seriously size up Zhang Xiu. She found that Zhang Xiu had grown a lot taller. In the past, she was half a head taller than Zhang Xiu. Now, Zhang Xiu was half a head taller than her. He was even taller than Chu Qianqing and Danian. In addition, he had become more handsome. His face was as resolute as marble and his eyes were as dark as night. He had become a rare handsome man. She felt strange and couldn't help but look at him a few more times. Zhang Xiu asked, "How do you make a fortune?" Chu Qianqing looked around and made sure that no one was paying attention. He lowered his voice and said, "Have you seen someone kill someone?" Clang. The glass in Chen Shui's hand fell to the ground and shattered. Her pretty face became paler and paler. She hurriedly picked up the broken glass. Little Min also squatted down to help. What do you mean? Chu Qianqing said, the All Dao Festival is a battle for the top of the blacklist. The people on the stage don't care if they live or die. The bets outside are even more frightening. Any random round can cost thousands of years or even hundreds of millions. If you bring a little capital and bet with others, you can make 100 times more in a day. Zhang Xiu said in his heart, so that's how it is. Did you see young Master Nian's car? Did you think that his father bought it for him? No, he used his money to bet it. Chu Qianqing's eyes lit up when he said this. Zhang Xiu said, then let's go and take a look. From the reaction of the two girls, the scene must be very bloody and cruel. Betting money on the competition was enough to make people go crazy, not to mention betting their lives. Young Master Nian, do you know how to go later? Danian shook his head and said, I'm not going. The All Dao Festival is here. With so many things, the old man will definitely look for me. You go with Zhang Xiu. After that, come to my house to drink. Little Min also didn't plan to go. She said that she had something to do at home. I'll go. Zhang Xiu looked at Chen Shui in surprise. Chen Shui had become more and more beautiful. Compared to 3 years ago, she was like a tightly closed lily that had opened its stamen. It was just that her delicate face was now very pale. I need money. After eating and drinking to their fill, the 2 boys and 1 girl got up and set off. The battle for the top of the black list was held in the village's temple. It was originally a place where gods were worshipped, but now it was a bloody place. Hey, you guys in front. Just as they were walking, Zhang Xiu and the others heard someone calling them. They couldn't help but turn their heads to look. It was a group of youths. There were both boys and girls. They were dressed fashionably and their outfits were worth at least 100,000 yuan. One look and one could tell that they were outsiders. You guys are locals, right? The one who spoke was a girl. Her voice was crisp and pleasant to the ears. It was very comfortable to listen to. She had a northern accent that sounded a bit like the capital's accent. Zhang Xiu looked back and couldn't help but be stunned. The girl was about 1.68 meters tall. She wore a white cap and had long black hair. She had a very athletic aura. Coupled with her beautiful face, she was very attractive. One couldn't help but take a few more glances. It was her. I didn't expect to meet her here. Lin Mi. The capital's Lin family's young miss. She was also Zhang Xiu's cousin. She was his uncle's daughter and his cousin. In his previous life, Zhang Xiu only had the chance to meet her when he entered the capital. Chu Qianqing replied, That's right. What's the matter? Lin Mi's gaze swept over Zhang Xiu and the others. She asked, Do you know where the battle for the top of the black list will be held? The battle for the top of the black list was to fight for an underground king. In the past, it was called a gathering of Taoist soldiers. Gradually, its nature changed and it became a battle for the top of the black list. The battle could be fought by oneself, subordinates, or aides. It would be a fight to the death. Because it was a matter of killing, very few people knew about it. Those who knew about it were all people in the underworld. I know. The girl said, Lead the way. There will be plenty of benefits for you. Pay up first. Lin Mi motioned to the people behind her. The people behind her took out a stack of money and stuffed it over. It looked like it was 1 or 2,000 yuan. Seeing this, Chu Qianqing grinned. He took the money and patted it in his hand. Follow me. The man who handed over the money sneered when he saw this. You're just a peasant from the mountains. You're so happy with this little money. Mimi, what's so interesting about this battle for the top of the blacklist? It's all unorthodox and not worth mentioning. Why did you come all the way here to watch? There are many similar competitions in the capital. The man said, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. Another young man on the side said, That's right. There are underground fists everywhere. Of course, The one with the highest level is the Jing sect. Listening to their bragging, the real martial arts masters don't even bother to come here. Brother, when you go up later, you'll directly defeat them. Jiang Xiu glanced at the two people. They were just martial artists who hadn't even cultivated internal strength. They probably hadn't come into contact with real masters. They might be martial arts masters. They didn't know that this was a place for killing. Lin Mi said, the blacklist battle in the eastern state is very popular underground. It's rare that I have time, so of course I have to see it. And the money involved is not small. Chu Qianqing, who was leading the way, counted the money as he walked. Then he divided it with Jiang Xiu and Chen Shui. It was about 500 or 600 yuan each. Jiang Xiu took the money and gave it to Chen Shui. Chen Shui said in surprise, "Why are you giving it to me? Aren't you short of money?" Chen Shui hesitated for a moment. She bit her lip and reached out to take it. She said, "Thank you." Lin Mi saw all of this and couldn't help but look at Jiang Xiu. At this time, she didn't know who this person was. She would never have thought that the person in front of her was the son of her aunt who ran away from home. The village temple wasn't far. It was very noisy inside, and there were continuous cheers. Chapter 59. After successfully bringing Lin Mi and the others to the temple, the mission was completed. However, just as they reached the entrance of the temple, someone inside shouted, "Make way, make way." A group of youths carried out a young man covered in blood with a broken arm and leg on a stretcher. A woman was taking care of him and said with a sorrowful face, "His arms and legs are all broken. Even if he is cured, he will still be a cripple." Seeing this woman, Jiang Xiu's heart trembled. The woman was in her early 50s, but her body was very strong. She cried out, "Sister Xiang." She was the nanny who had taken care of Jiang Xiu for many years, Chu Qianqing's mother. Sister Xiang turned her head and saw a face full of wrinkles. She was shocked. Minor repairs. Even though they had not seen each other for 3 years, Sister Xiang still recognized him at a glance. Then her surprised face turned cold. She shouted at Chu Qianqing, "Little bastard, why did you bring minor repairs to a place like this? Quickly take him away." A robust old man at the side said, "Is this the child who is staying with your family?" Jiang Xiu still recognized him. He was the village chief of Shannan village. Everyone called him Old Iron Head. He held a pipe and walked around. "Yes, the village chief still remembers me." Beside the old village chief, there were also many able-bodied men of the village. "You are Jiang Xiu, right?" Jiang Xiu said, "Yes." "Make way, make way." There was another commotion in the crowd. Another young man covered in blood with a broken arm and leg was carried out. "What, did you lose again?" Sister Xiang did not have time to teach her son and Jiang Xiu a lesson. Jiang Xiu asked, "What happened?" Chu Qianqing said, "In the past 2 years, our village and Shanbei village had a fierce conflict because of the All Dao festival. A few lives were lost. In order to solve the problem, both sides agreed to be on the blacklist. Whoever wins will be disqualified from the All Dao festival. This is related to our livelihood, so we have formed a grudge. Everyone is fighting with their lives." In the eastern state, the people were known for their ferocity. Fights between villages had been a common occurrence since the 70s, and it was common for people to die at the sight of blood. Excuse me." When the man was carried away, Jiang Xiu glanced at him. The bones in his cheeks were distorted, and the man had completely fainted. "Sigh, 3 people have already been injured." Xiang Sao sighed and said helplessly, "Our village is not as rich as Shanbei village. We can't hire a master." After saying that, she realized that the person she was complaining to was Jiang Xiu. She came back to her senses and said, "Minor repairs. Why are you here? Do your parents know?" Jiang Xiu said, "They don't know." If he said that he knew, it would be embarrassing if Xiang Sao called and asked about it, so he might as well admit it. Auntie Xiang said, "You. And you, brat, how dare you bring minor repairs to a place like this? I'll deal with you when we get home." Chu Qianqing said, "Mom, I'm helping minor repairs to win some money." Xiang Saw muttered to herself. She knew Jiang Xiu's family situation better than anyone else. They were originally a wealthy family, but they had fallen overnight. Now, they were selling fruits in the city, and their income was very limited. She said helplessly, "Let's go in together." After entering the temple, there were waves of screams and shouts. A new battle was underway. Jiang Xiu was calm and at ease, but Chen Shui's face was completely pale. Yesterday, she came to take a look, but she only saw a little. The scene of hand-to-hand combat made her hair stand on end. When she saw blood, she ran away. But today, she came to earn money. Her little hand held the money, but it was trembling violently. The hired thug from Shannon village couldn't take it anymore. He was pressed to the ground and punched in the head. It was very bloody. "We're going to lose again," Xiang Saw said helplessly as she looked at the scene. Jiang Xiu said, "If we lose, will it have a big impact?" "Is it?" Chu Qianqing's eyes opened wide. After the Dao soldier gathering turned into a blacklist battle, the nature of the battle has changed. Aristocratic families, gangs, sects, and many underground powers will fight to the death. Their lives are all on the line, so why would they keep their money? It's the same as putting all their lives on the line. Although the conflict between our two villages isn't enough to put all our lives on the line, it is more or less the same. Do you think it will have a big impact? It was indeed very cruel. This was completely different from the current harmonious society. Naturally, it wasn't something that was born now. It would only be born in times of disaster. It was a product of the Tao of heaven. Make way, make way. The person who lost was carried out on a stretcher. Chu Qianqing said, "Mom, is the next one Chong's brother, Chen Yibing?" Xiang Saw said, "Yes, it is Chen Yibing." "Is he very strong?" Xiang Saw said, "Our Shannon village spent a lot of money to invite him. This time, we are relying on him. I hope he can win." Jiang Xiu said to Xiang Saw, "If you don't have much confidence, I can help." Xiang Saw was frightened. What nonsense was this child saying, "I appreciate your kindness, but that's fighting on the line. Didn't you see what happened to those people? They were lucky to have broken limbs. If they were unlucky, they would have died on the spot. With your small body, you should stay and serve your parents." Jiang Xiu's hair flew up. His eyes were as deep as the abyss. He said in a low voice, "Xiang Saw, I am really strong. I can really fight. This kind of battle is like an ant. You can't even withstand a single blow." Xiang Saw didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Okay, stop fooling around. Stay here." Jiang Xiu said, "Xiang Saw, stay here." Xiu Shan was a bit depressed. Why was this sovereign speaking so seriously, yet he actually didn't believe him? Could it be that he thought this sovereign was lying to him? Preposterous, simply preposterous. Brother Bing, Brother Bing. Chen Yibing was a little over 1.8 meters tall. His whole body was muscular, and there was a tiger tattoo on his naked body. His face was rough, and there was a glaring scar on his forehead, which made him look even more ferocious. He was in his 20s or 30s. His eyes were not big, but there was a fierce light in them. At first glance, one could tell that he was a very fierce person. Jiang Xiu asked unhappily, "Xiang Saw, how much did the village spend to invite him?" 3 million. Jiang Xiu took a deep breath. This was too preposterous. A dignified cultivation god who had 0 appearance fees had actually been rejected. Instead, they had to spend 3 million to invite such a person. Chu Qianqing took out all the money he had with him. There was a total of more than 10,000 yuan. He bet all of it on Chen Yibing. Chen Shui gritted her teeth and bet all the 3,000 yuan she had. Suddenly, a hand reached out and pressed on the money. It was Jiang Xiu. "You can't bet. You will lose." Jiang Xiu had just seen the master invited by Shanbei village. The other party was an internal strength master, while Chen Yibing had not really cultivated internal strength. If there was no accident, Chen Yibing would lose. Bah bah. You're going to bah. The battle was imminent. Don't say such discouraging words. Really? Before she finished speaking, the nervous Chen Shui covered her mouth and said fiercely, "Little tot, if you talk nonsense again, I will beat you." Jiang Xiu, spiritual cultivation, was very angry and the consequences were very serious. "I was kind enough to help you, but you didn't believe me." After the duel began, the people of Shannon village were very nervous. "We must win. We must win." Chu Qianqing and Chen Shui put all their money on it. They would either succeed or die trying. "Brother Bing, come on." Jiang Xiu looked at the field and said softly, 7 moves. Internal strength warriors were completely different from martial artists. If an ordinary martial artist were to use a saber to hack a large rock, no matter how strong he was, the rock would at most be slightly damaged. However, internal strength warriors, especially those with profound skills, could use a saber to completely split a rock that was 10 or even 20 centimeters thick. It was obvious that the strength gap between the two was huge. Bang! Both fists collided with each other. With a cracking sound, Chen Yibing took a step back with a pained expression on his face. His clenched fists trembled violently. In that instant, he felt a surge of energy surging through him like a tidal wave. It was as if his bones had been shaken to pieces. Ah! The other party roared and rose into the air. Chen Yibing hurriedly turned sideways and kicked out at the same time. The other party came down from the air and did not dodge. He directly pressed his elbow on Chen Yibing's thigh. Chen Yibing screamed in pain. 2 moves. Jiang Xiu did not look at the stage again. The Shannon village became silent. The confidence just now disappeared without a trace. Even a blind man could see that Chen Yibing was no match for the other party. "Brother Bing, you won't lose." Chen Shui's voice was trembling. "I think so." Chu Qianqing was about to cry. He had bet Quan Fu's value on him. Ah! With a scream, Chen Yibing was kicked several meters away. He was unconscious on the spot. His hands and feet were broken. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. It was exactly 7 moves. "Quick, take him down. Make way." The village chief and some backbones of the Shannon village were stunned. Their last hope had been lost. It was over. It was over. The old village chief's legs were weak and he fell to the ground. The people of Shanbei village cheered loudly. "Old Tai, your Shannon village lost. From now on, you are not allowed to interfere in the business of Taoism. Otherwise, I will beat you every time I see you. But you have no money to do any more business." Ha ha ha! The people of Shanbei village laughed wildly. "Smash all the shops in Shannon. Leave nothing behind. Take away all the useful things." Okay. The villagers of Shannon village looked as if they had lost their parents. Aunt Xiang's face was also pale. She said helplessly, "We tried our best. Shannon tried our best. We can only blame ourselves for not being able to hire a real master." Many young people could not help crying. They stubbornly held back their tears. Chu Qianqing and Chen Shui were desperate. They had lost their money and their livelihood. They did not know how to live in Shannon village. Maybe the whole village would go out to work. It was conceivable that Shanbei would become richer and Shannon would become poorer and poorer. But just when everyone was in despair, a voice came, "Who said there is no one in Shannon?" Jiang Xiu. He strode towards the center of the field. Sister Xiang and Chu Qianqing cried out in shock. "Is he crazy?" "Huh. Damien is the boy who led us here." Chapter 60. This shock was truly incredible. What kind of joke was this? Was this a child playing house? This was putting his life on the line. If he went up, he would be beaten to death. Xiang Sao cried out in panic, minor repairs. Come back. Zhang Xiu sneered in his heart. You actually don't believe me? Now, I'll show you what it means to be the headmaster of the Qianxing school, the overlord of the immortal martial continent for 3,000 years. He took a step forward and dark clouds began to gather in the sky outside of the temple. He took another step forward and lightning flashed in the clouds. Quick, Qianxing, quickly pull the minor repairs back. Without waiting for Xiang Sao's orders, Chu Qianxing had already rushed up. He was cursing Zhang Xiu in his heart for being an idiot. He grabbed onto Zhang Xiu and refused to let him go up. Chen Shui blocked his path and pressed her slender hands against Zhang Xiu's strong chest. Even if he lost all his money and his livelihood, at least he would still have his life. Zhang Xiu said, "What are you doing?" His heart raged. "I want to act pretentious. Nobody can stop me. Minor repairs? Are you crazy? Calm down." Several of the strong men in the village saw that the situation was not right and rushed up to hold on to Zhang Xiu. "We lost. We know that you can't take this lying down for the sake of the village. But we can't just throw away our lives. Even Chen Yibing is not his opponent. If you go up, you'll just be giving him a free win. What's the difference between that and throwing away your life?" The village chief helplessly sighed. "This child is a good child. He's just a bit too naive." Zhang Xiu said, "Throwing away my life? Ha ha ha, ignorant, stupid. Let go of me. I'm going to go up and destroy that ant." Xiang Sao anxiously shouted, "Quickly pull him back, pull him back." She was really worried that Zhang Xiu would break free and rush up the stage. When a person loses their mind, they would often do crazy things. If something really happened to Zhang Xiu, how would she explain it to Lin Yueling and her husband? In the distance, Lin Mi and the others shook their heads helplessly. What a ridiculous farce. However, Lin Mi was curiously sizing up Zhang Xiu. She felt that this young man was quite interesting. First, he gave the money he earned to his female companion. Then, because his village was defeated, he went up to fight even though he knew that he was no match for them. "Uncle Fu, what do you think of this person?" Among this group of young people, there was a person who wasn't very tall and was wearing a black sweater. If one looked closely, they would realize that this person wasn't young. It was just that he was dressed young and used a sweater to cover his face. In fact, he was in his 50s or even older. He has no cultivation at all, but he seems to have a good character. At least he's magnanimous and not greedy. His sense of honor isn't bad either. Lin Mi nodded. "That's right. What does young miss mean?" Lin Mi looked directly at Zhang Xiu in the distance and said, "In this day and age, there are many smart people, talented people, and powerful people, but there are not many loyal people. Our Lin family needs people like this to sacrifice their lives for us at critical times." Uncle Fu said, "Young miss, do you want to take him into the Lin family?" Lin Mi smiled faintly. "Why not?" Uncle Fu's expression changed drastically as he said in astonishment, "This brat, this." His ancestors must have spouted smoke. He actually had the chance to enter the Lin clan. You have to know how much effort I put in to enter the Lin clan, and this brat actually. Lin Mi walked over. "Do you have something to say?" Lin Mi said, "Do you want to win?" Her gaze was fixed on Zhang Xiu's face. She unexpectedly found that although Zhang Xiu's clothes weren't eye-catching, he was actually very handsome. He had a strange temperament that she couldn't put her finger on, but there was a sense of mystery about him. Zhang Xiu said, "Of course." As long as he made a move, a mere inner strength master was nothing to him. Lin Mi said proudly, "I can help you." Zhang Xiu didn't need anyone's help, but he was curious as to why Lin Mi wanted to help him. He couldn't help but think that she couldn't have recognized him, right? But thinking about it carefully, he felt that this possibility was zero. In his previous life, when he went to the capital to see Lin Mi didn't recognize him. This meant that Lin Mi had never seen him before. How could she recognize him at this moment? "However, I have a condition." Zhang Xiu said curiously, "Tell me." Lin Mi said, I will help you win this battle and save your village from this disaster so that you can live a good life. But you have to come with me and pledge your loyalty to my Lin family. My Lin family will use you. The several youths beside Lin Mi looked at Zhang Xiu differently. Their eyes were filled with envy. This was something that many people dreamed of. Although he had become a servant, it depended on whose servant he was. How could an emperor's servant compare to an ordinary person's servant? The Lin family was powerful. Even if he was a servant, he would still be respected by others. Just like Uncle Fu who stood beside Lin Mi. Who would dare to not respect him? What did you say? However, they didn't notice that Zhang Xiu's mysterious eyes had turned into cold killing intent. He looked at Lin Mi as if he was looking at a dead person. The Lin family, one of the 10 most handsome men in the capital, the Lin family. Hua! There was a sudden uproar. Who didn't know of the 10 most handsome men in the capital? However, most of them had already passed away. The Lin family was one of the few that were still alive. They were one of the top wealthy families in the country. Kid, you're in luck. Ha ha ha, I think this silly kid is so happy that he's turned silly. The man with the buzz cut who was with Lin Mi teased. To be able to enter the Lin family was the dream of many people. Many people went into the military, went into the government, and even went into business. Who didn't want to rely on a giant like the Lin family? Uncle Fu, who was behind Lin Mi, said, "Kid, what are you standing there for? Hurry up and thank the young lady." Lin Mi's gaze was indifferent. To Zhang Xiu, it had completely changed his poor and mediocre life. However, to Lin Mi, it was just a matter of lips touching lips. A strong sense of superiority exuded from her. Zhang Xiu looked up with a cold gaze. If you weren't a member of the Lin family, you would already be a dead man. To a powerful person like Zhang Xiu, letting him enter the family as a servant was a great humiliation. If it weren't for the fact that he cared about her relationship with Lin Yueling's school, Zhang Xiu would have blown him to smithereens on the spot, and even annihilated his entire family. What did you say? Lin Mi wondered if she had heard wrongly. Was he rejecting her? Looking at his angry expression, he seemed to have suffered a great humiliation. To be able to join the Lin family was a humiliation that many people dreamed of. You're very arrogant, but you don't seem to know what fate and opportunity are. This is an opportunity that can change your life, an opportunity that can make you a great person. What I've bestowed upon you is a bright future. Zhang Xiu smiled. His smile was full of contempt. Your so-called future is nothing but a pitiful joke in my eyes. Hua! The crowd burst into an uproar again. Look, even the Lin family, one of the 10 great generals, looked down on them. Oh my God! This person must be crazy. Impudent! Uncle Fu roared. In his eyes, Zhang Xiu was nothing more than a peasant from a remote village, a nobody that he didn't even spare a glance at. He believed that he was of a higher level than Zhang Xiu, but the opportunity that he viewed as glory was actually trampled on by Zhang Xiu. How could he accept this? Who do you think you are? How dare you look down on the Lin family? Lin Mi raised her hand slightly to signal Uncle Fu to calm down. However, her gaze was still fixed on Zhang Xiu's face. This is the first time I've heard someone say that the Lin family is a joke. However, who are you to say that? A small peasant from a remote village? Don't forget who you are and what you're doing. Look, all of you lost like stray dogs. The people of Shannon village lowered their heads in shame. They were indeed helpless in the current situation. Even if they fought with their lives on the line, they would not be able to change anything. However, the Lin family can solve this problem easily. No one doubted this point. For the Lin family, it was indeed easy to solve this problem. I'll ask you one last time. Will you join the Lin family? The Lin family had extended an olive branch to a small peasant from a remote village. However, they were rejected. How could the Lin family show their face? Aunt Xiang, Chu Qianqing, Chen Shui, and the others all nodded at him, urging him to agree quickly. This was his last chance. If he joined the Lin family, not only would he be able to solve the predicament of Shannon Village, but he would also have a bright future. Zhang Xiu glanced at them coldly. I'll go to the Lin family. I'll definitely go. However, when I arrive at the Lin family, it will be the day when the Lin family kneels and repents. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.